Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Is it that time already? .6:03, happy Sunday, one and all. I'm Mark Dolan. This is Talk Breakfast, and breaking this morning, a shock new poll sees the Tories closing the gap to just 3 points behind Reform UK, with the very real threat of a rainbow coalition featuring Labour, the Greens, the SNP and the Lib Dems. Do Reform UK and the Tories need to merge to keep Labour out of office? As pressure grows on the BBC to cancel 2 of David Walliams' shows over the Christmas period, is the Little Britain star the victim of a woke witch hunt? And Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor is photographed draped over several women and taking disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein's girlfriend Ghislaine Maxwell to a royal property. Should the king take further measures to deal with his scandal-hit younger brother? How do you solve a problem like Andrew? Plus, a gun-toting illegal immigrant who called for death to all Jews, free to roam the streets. Welcome to Broken Britain. We've got the inside story. Meanwhile, Labour's war on cars worsens, with the government drastically reducing the number of parking spaces on new build properties. This is a plan, folks. The government don't want you to have the independence and the freedom of your own vehicle. It is a war on the motorists. I say on your bike. That is today's Dolan's Dispatch at 8 o'clock. It might get me cancelled. Good. Now, my priority for the next 4 hours is to get your opinions on the national television and radio airwaves. My phone number is 0344 499 1000. And we've got a brand new recruit on the show. Isabel is taking your calls. So give her a call. Say, good morning, Isabel. Here are the things I'd like to say on the national television and radio airwaves. And Isabel is going to literally, she'll put you on telly. 0344 499 1000. What do you think about this? The terrifying prospect of a rainbow coalition, the most left-wing administration in history. The Greens, the Lib Dems, Labour, all working together with the help of the SNP. Do you want that? Is it time for Reform and the Tories to merge? 0344 499 1000. Text the word talk in your message to 87222. Leave me a voice note, and as the saying goes, let's talk. And at 6 minutes past 6, let's kick off with today's front pages. And we start with the Sunday Telegraph, and it's the topic of today's Dolan's Dispatch. Motorists face a new parking space ban. Sir Keir Starmer is starting a fresh crackdown on parking spaces in a new war on motorists. Under plans published by the government, councils will be required to impose sweeping parking restrictions, limiting the number of spaces on new housing developments without any justification. The move aims to discourage car use in favour of greener alternatives, such as using public transport. Good luck with that. Try getting a bus in the middle of nowhere in the British countryside. Walking or indeed cycling. Well, let's be honest, cycling is incredibly dangerous. And that's if you're lucky enough not to have had your bicycle stolen in a city centre. And also walking's hazardous too because of the muggings and the antisocial behaviour. The only safe place to be is your car, but Labour don't want you on 4 wheels. Critics warn that the policy will squeeze drivers and lead to parking misery in the latest move targeting motorists in the name of net zero. Do let me know, by the way, 03444991000, what you think of this government's war on the motorist. Tell me how hard life has got for you as a car driver. Tell me about the cost of petrol. Tell me about the road tax. Tell me about your insurance. Tell me about the low traffic neighbourhoods. Tell me about the green zones, the ULEZ, about the parking. Are you having trouble now? Because it's become, in our great cities, a rare privilege to park anywhere near your property. That is a luxury that's not now bestowed upon the great unwashed, the masses, the working people who Keir Starmer is so fond of. It's almost impossible now to park near where you live because of these egregious restrictions. So let me know what you're going through as a motorist. Prince Andrew, formerly, of course, the artist known as Prince Andrew, now Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, took Ghislaine Maxwell to Sandringham, as revealed by the Epstein files. And what about this for a shocking headline? The majority of Jews do not feel safe in Britain and feel they do not have a long-term future in the UK, many considering leaving the country. Anti-Semitism has left 61% of the Jewish community considering moving abroad, up from 50% last year. And that's because of these weekly so-called peace marches, which are supported by woke left-wing middle-class people, the graduate class, the lanyard class, who don't understand anything about the politics of the Middle East and who, I would argue, have basically been the useful idiots for Hamas-supporting anti-Semites. They've walked on these marches with very clear placards saying things like "from the river to the sea," which means making Israel disappear. Okay, and Israel is the home of Jewish people in the Middle East. And placards like "Globalise the Intifada." Well, what does that mean? Globalise the Intifada means bombs in shopping centres and on buses and in concert stadia. That's what Globalise the Intifada is. That's what the Manchester Arena bombings were, and that's what happened in Bondi Beach just last weekend. So this has all been aided and abetted by left-wing numpties, you know, the Sawyer-chumping wokies, who have led to a situation now where British Jews feel unsafe. And you know something? There are only about 300,000 Jewish people in this country, but they are extraordinarily well integrated. The Jewish people are about the best at integration anywhere in the world. That is their story throughout history, is integration. And Jewish people are disproportionately productive, making a huge contribution to the culture of this country and its economy, disproportionately. And yet we're hounding Jewish people out of the country. Be clear that Jewish people are the canary in the coal mine, because those Hamas thugs who want to kill every Jew, I mean, I'm just going to call a spade at 11 minutes past 6, right? This is a hateful Nazi ideology, Islamism, right? They want to just destroy all Jews, and they want to make Israel disappear off the map. Be very clear, folks. Once they've dealt with Jewish people, you're next, because they hate you too. And this is what bothers me about the university-educated chattering classes, is that they don't get it, because they are apologists for Islamic terror, and they are Hamas's useful idiots. And what's greatly ironic is they think they're the good guys. They most certainly are not. BBC under pressure to drop shows with David Walliams. The BBC has refused to drop David Walliams from its Christmas schedule, despite pledging to cut ties with him. Walliams, who is one of the country's most successful children's authors, was dropped by his publisher HarperCollins on Friday following a Telegraph investigation into alleged inappropriate behaviour towards young women. He was accused of harassing a female member of staff at the firm, who subsequently left with a 5-figure payout. Following the allegations, the BBC announced it was planning no future projects with the former Little Britain star. But here's a question for you this morning at 12 minutes past 6, and it's related to a voice note I took on the show yesterday. By the way, we love the voice notes. Dean, producer Dean, executive producer of the show, and engineer Dave, they love your voice notes, and so slam them in. What you do is you call the number, and if you're too busy to talk to Isabel and want to just get your point across in a pre-recorded message, you leave your voice note at the end of the tone, and we put it on the radio and on the telly, and it's a great way to get your message across. So here's a question. I took a voice note yesterday from a female listener who said that actually men are being hounded now, that if you flirt with somebody in the office, if you send her a text message, if you say, hello, darling, would you like to go for a drink? In the 1970s and 1980s, you were just a charming, sociable guy. Well, in 2025, you're a predator, apparently. And this was certainly the view shared by one of our listeners yesterday. And she said, listen, you know, men are literally just, you know, treated like criminals these days for a basic flirtation. So what is your thought on the Williams story? Many argue it's very serious, that there's a pattern of behaviour here, and that you've got a young female employee of HarperCollins, the publishers, that's left following a payout, and therefore very bad. Or has the guy been hung out to dry, has been thrown under the bus? One thing I would say, he's not been accused of any illegality whatsoever, potentially just misjudgment. Is that enough to lose your career? 0344 499 1000. Is David Walliams the subject of a woke witch hunt? Personally, I don't think he is. I think that he is a guy whose pattern of behaviour is a concern. If you look at the fact that on Britain's Got Talent, he described one of the contestants, this is a member of the public, by the way, that's very nervous going on national TV, and he whispers to one of his co-stars on the show, oh, I know what kind of person she is. She thinks you want to F her, but you absolutely don't. Right? What a vile thing to say. He also called someone else the C word. But I don't know. Let me know. It's all about opinions. Share yours with me, 0344 499 1000. The Mail on Sunday. Former Lioness Karen roars to Strictly victory. Did you watch Strictly? Let me know your thoughts about the winner. Who's going to take over? Because I don't know how you replace Claudia Winkleman and the other one. I really don't, because, yeah, I think it's, for me, Tess Daly, she's all right. I think it's Winkleman's the star. I think she does all the heavy lifting. But anyway, so Claudia and Tess, who should replace those two on Strictly? I've got a few ideas. Number one among them is myself and Kevin O'Sullivan. You heard me right. Kevin O'Sullivan and I should co-host Strictly. And let me tell you how we would do it, right? Strictly wouldn't be woke. So, for example, if you've got someone like Thomas Skinner, the entrepreneur and ex-Apprentice star, who is maybe on the right politically, which, by the way, just means common sense. Right? Most people are in inverted commas right-wing now. Right? 6:15 in the morning. Everyone's right-wing. It's not a thing anymore, far right, right-wing. Well, what is that? That's just a normal person in the 1980s and 90s that think there are two sexes, and you've got a border, so maybe there could be a policeman at the border who says you can't come in because this is a country. Right? That's far right now. So everyone, as far as I'm concerned, 95% of people are far right in this country. But if you try to go on the BBC with conservative opinions, good luck. Tom Skinner, entrepreneur, he was on The Apprentice. He's a Cockney cheeky chappy. He's a good friend of mine. He follows me on X. We chat from time to time. And he was hounded off that show. He's actually considering suing the BBC for rigging the vote against him, for misrepresenting how popular he was on Strictly. But the reason why he was unwelcome on the show is because he wasn't woke. He didn't tick all the boxes. He wasn't the diversity hire, and he had common sense opinions. So Kevin O'Sullivan and I take over Strictly. The other thing we'll do, it won't be woke, so people of all political opinions will be allowed on the show, left, right, and in between. Okay, we'll have Greens, we can have vegans, we'll have right-wing people, left-wing people, entertainers. We'll put some funny comedians on there. We could transform that show. I think Kevin O'Sullivan and I, taking over Strictly, we would double the ratings. I kid you not, we would double. And what I would do, I might grow my hair out with a kind of Claudia fringe. I can, like, comb it down, and a lot of eye makeup, a lot of eyeshadow. I can channel Claudia Winkleman, and what we can do with Kevin is 2025, we can put him in a pair of heels and he can be Tess. Because I've actually seen, no word of a lie, I've seen Kevin O'Sullivan unclothed, and he's got terrific legs. Right? You know, you're going to cancel me. Am I going to get Williams, right? I'm going to get Mark to HR. Mark, can we have a word after the show? You've been harassing Kevin O'Sullivan, remarking on his rather lovely legs and those rich calf muscles. But we would do it, and then so it wouldn't be woke, and there'd be people of diverse opinion on the show. It wouldn't be box ticking. We'd actually have people on the show that you've heard of as well. You'd have to be famous. Wouldn't that be nice if the stars of Strictly were actually famous? And then here's the last thing we would do. We would do it for 100 quid, right? Kevin's independently wealthy. Kevin, can I tell you about Kevin O'Sullivan? Absolutely minted. The guy, he's one of those people, right? When he eventually shuffles off this mortal coil in 30 years' time, it'd be like £57 million. It's like, he kept that quiet, especially when it was his round. Kevin and I should do Strictly. I promise you, we would double the ratings. Let me know what you think. Should Kevin O'Sullivan and I take over? And by the way, what I would do is I'd obviously clear it with the boss. And I think the boss will be very supportive of that. Great publicity for Talk. Great publicity for Talk Breakfast, which, by the way, I'm honoured to be helming now permanently Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. There's only one reason why that's happened, and it's you. Thank you for listening and watching. There is no Talk, and there is no Talk Breakfast. There is no Jeremy Carr Breakfast Show. There's no Kevin O'Sullivan, Julia Hartley-Brewer, Ian Collins, and Alex Phillips, and Peter Cardwell, all those great people without you. Anyway, there you go. So we would save the BBC money, and we would do Strictly for 100 quid. Sunday Express, shops face last Christmas as recession fears grow. Well done, Rachel. We're going to give Rachel a kicking today, aren't we, Dean? Yeah, and then some. I'm so sorry. The worst politician in the country. But, I mean, there's some competition, isn't there? You got Jeff Phillips, the so-called safeguarding minister, who didn't want a grooming gangs inquiry. You've got net zero lunatic Ed Miliband, the enemy of bacon sandwiches globally. You've got the most incompetent, dishonest Prime Minister in Sir Keir Starmer. Captain U-turn. You've got Rachel from Accounts, who lied about her CV and pretended that the country was more broke than it was before the budget. There's no end to who the worst member of the government is, but let me know who you think it's going to be. But I think probably it's our Rachel. The Sun on Sunday, fabulous. Queen salutes Tess and Claudia. That's right, Queen Camilla has been saying how good Claudia Winkleman and Tess Daly are. Well, Kevin O'Sullivan and I are seriously considering replacing them, and I think we'll do a better job, and I think we'll double their ratings. Cops called to Ender's studio, Josser death threat. EastEnders actress Jacqueline Josser has been sent death threats via social media. The 33-year-old reported the messages to her BBC bosses at the studios in Elstree, Hertfordshire. Police were called in. A source said they were sinister enough to raise the alarm and take action. Everyone is taking them seriously. That's a very, very worrying story, and we wish her well. Wonderful actress, a great talent. Sunday Times, dying is worthwhile, Palestine action hunger striker says in jail phone cell. That's fine. You don't want to eat, no problem. It's a free country. Your Palestine Action, by the way, prescribed terror group. Prison. You go into prison and you go on a hunger strike. That's no skin off my nose. You saved a little bit of a catering budget in the jail. And they never, by the way, these hunger strikes, they never do. They get like a little snack here and there. There's no hunger strike, right? They never see it through. When was the last time somebody passed away from a hunger strike? It's fake news. Spies, you know what they'll be having? They'll be eating couscous and lentils. That'll keep them going, and they call that a hunger strike. I better get on with it, hadn't I, Dean? Spies invasion fear as Beijing buys up homes across London, and forces new inquiry over Maccabi fans ban. And a nice story about Prince George, a trip down Pudding Lane. Prince George, who's 12 now, helps prepare meals during a visit with his father to the Passage, a homeless shelter in central London, to which William was taken as a boy by his mother, Diana. Do you know what we'll do? We'll get to more front pages, plus my star studio guest next.
You know, it's no...
Allegations of siphoning, things being sold off. I mean, all of these things, these are, again, allegations. There is
We've seen evidence of it. We've seen, there is documentary evidence of people siphoning off aid. It has happened. It's been sold in the black market. What are you trying to do to prevent that?
Look, you're conflating two things here.
I'm not conflating two things. I'm talking about... I'm not. There is evidence to suggest that Hamas has stolen aid.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
You are listening to 620. You're listening to 624. Welcome. Put my brain in. Get a coffee going. It is 624. This is Talk Breakfast. Mark Dolan with you until 10 a.m. With me in the studio now, political commentator and public relations guru Piers Pottinger. Good morning, Piers.
Morning, Mark.
Lovely to see you. And we've just tweaked the format today where we go 6:15 to 7:15. So you'll be joining us into the next hour, which I'm very much looking forward to.
Pleasure.
And I want to ask you about this new poll, which places the Tories just 3 points behind Reform UK. Now, you have a bit of a health warning around this poll, don't you?
Well, yes. I mean, it's a poll produced by Lord Ashcroft, who's not actually known as a pollster, and the sample isn't actually explained. I don't know how big the sample is.
It could just be a few thousand.
It could be quite small, and also some of the questions are, quite frankly, slightly trivial because they're for the Daily Mail. They've been asked, they're about... Would Nigel Farage, which leader is going to be the first to fall asleep after Christmas lunch in front of the telly, stuff like that. Fairly absurd and worthless questions. But the point is, it does show Kemi Badenoch is doing rather better. And of course, Michael Ashcroft would be very pleased about that, as any Conservative would be. And there's no doubt she's performing better, but actually, in most of the polls, she's still a long way behind Reform, as indeed are Labour. The fastest growing party at the moment are the Greens, which is even more worrying, because if you look at their leader, who isn't even an MP, a man who believes he can hypnotise women into having larger breasts, which is fairly extraordinary claim. Anyway, even by today's insane standards, that's a weird claim. But
don't knock it. Mrs. Dolan had a Zoom call with him, quite transformative.
Well, I'm sure transformative, I hope. Anyway, but maybe not, I don't know. But we're getting distracted here. No, the real point is that I believe that in order for Kemi to succeed, or indeed the right or centre right, or centre even, because the way this government's behaving, it's more communist or Stalinist than anything else. No, I think inevitably they will reach the conclusion before the next election that it's in their best interest to merge.
They think most of the same things.
They do.
Notwithstanding a few Tory wets, they both like to stop the boats. They're both going to tear up the ECHR. They've both pretty much cancelled net zero.
And also, I mean, the team that Farage is building around him are mostly ex-Conservatives.
Yeah. The Tories would have no issue... Reform would have no issue with the Tories' plan to cut spending by 40 to 50 billion pounds.
No.
They wouldn't object to the scrapping of the VAT on private schools.
No.
So it's hard to know really where the difference is ideologically, but the difference and the challenge is, Piers, that the perception out there in the public is if you want change, it's going to have to be reform, because the Tories are part of the establishment and they're the ones that broke so many promises for 14 years.
Yeah, the danger is that if And I think there is a danger already for Nigel Farage that he's peaked too early. Also, that he is taking all these Conservatives. So he's going to, if he's going to talk about change and they're the party of change, if he's just got a lot of old Tory has-beens around him, he's not going to look that different. And he's actually lessening the value of his electoral push. And I think he becomes less attractive to many voters, particularly the young. And if you may have noticed that one election manifesto pledge by Labour, which was to introduce voting for 16-year-olds, has been quietly forgotten about. And of course, they've forgotten about it because it's become apparent that 16-year-olds would vote Reform and Green, not Labour.
So do you think that policy will not come to pass?
I think they're going to quietly just forget about it.
Interesting.
Because at the moment, I mean, what they're doing and have done this week, which is actually shocking, by cancelling local elections. I mean, this is the sort of thing dictators do in banana republics. If they don't think they're going to win, they'll cancel or postpone the elections. And that's why Labour have done this, because it was quite clear from all the major polls, the best one being YouGov, in my opinion, the most reliable, with the biggest sample, shows that Reform would have swept the boards in the local elections. So what do Labour do? We'll come up with, we'll ask the councillors whether they want the elections. Well, of course they want to stay in their jobs, don't they? I mean, it's a nonsense. And it's actually undemocratic. It shows that Starmer's form of socialism is in fact communist. He wants to total control, and he doesn't mind about completely overriding the democratic rights of people in this country. I am disappointed that there hasn't been a greater uproar about this issue, because I believe, and I hope most of your viewers and listeners will agree with me, that this is one of the most outrageous things any government has done in modern times.
Now, many of my listeners and viewers will be dismayed at the idea of a merger between Reform and the Tories.
Yes, I would
because
be too.
what they want is drastic change. You know, what I'm describing as an economic, cultural and political revolution.
I think that's I would agree with that.
And the worry for so many of our viewers and listeners would be that that won't happen if you bring the Tories in.
Well, I'm afraid to say I rather agree. As someone who traditionally would have supported the Conservative Party, they are not blameless for the last 14 years. And although Reeves still uses it as an excuse for her own mistakes, there's no doubt that the Conservatives didn't do well in most recently.
No, open borders, net zero, wokery in our public institutions, an ever-expanding state, and in my humble opinion, a socialist COVID overreaction.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. I mean, the Conservatives are actually more responsible for wokery than the Labour Party. But the sad thing is that in reality, if you notice, Ed Davey in the House of Commons is terribly nice always to the Labour Party. And the reason for that is simple. He sees himself in a coalition with Labour at the next election. So Labour have probably got the ability to form a coalition government with the Lib Dems and the Greens, which would basically cancel the sort of number of seats that either the Reform or Conservatives would have on their own. At the moment, the Conservatives are looking like getting 25 seats, which was, I mean, just shockingly awful. Yes, Kemi's doing a little bit better, but not that much better. So, and the Reform Party, who, as I say, I fear may have peaked too early, by the time we get to an election, may well need those extra 25 seats, and therefore it would be a wise thing to do. Otherwise, we could end up in a situation with the coalition of these three ghastly parties in power for the foreseeable future and doing even more damage to this country that we love so much.
Well, based upon the parliamentary arithmetic, Piers, if the SNP, Labour and the Lib Dems coalesce or work together in some way, a pre-election pact, Reform can't actually win, can they?
No, I think on their own, no. That's why I think this merger is more out of necessity than anything else. And I mean, we have got to, and I think the British people, I always believe that the British electorate are not as stupid as sometimes rather arrogant politicians think they are. When they see what the writing's on the wall, we don't want any more of Starmer. I mean, Starmer's finished anyway, but his party is dangerous, and they've proved how dangerous they are by the kind of policies they've introduced already.
John in Sutton says, good morning, Mark. There will be no pact with the Tories. Farage will beat Badenoch easily. There will be more defections to Reform after the May elections. What makes you
elections?
Well, this is a good point. What makes you think that Reform UK have peaked or may have peaked?
Well, I think Nigel Farage, who is the best political communicator in the country, there's no question. But most recently, he's become rather thin-skinned in interviews. He gets rather snappy. He comes across as slightly frustrated. He hasn't had the kind of defections of people of real stature that I think he was expecting and hoping for.
Would that be a generic?
Yeah, the generics of this world, maybe some really high-quality Conservative peers. Yeah. Don't forget, he's got no representation in the upper house, and it's not insignificant that the Labour Party are stuffing the House with. They put 25 new peers in only last week, and they're going to bring more in, because what is very interesting is that if they think they're going to lose the general election, there is a way they could postpone the next general election. But that's when the House of Lords comes into play, and for that they need a big majority in the Lords, which they don't have at the moment. So there's an awful lot of political long-term shenanigans going on within the Labour Party to manipulate, quite frankly, our constitution and actually override democracy to keep themselves in power.
What would a merger between the Tories and Reform look like? That's next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
37, you are listening to Talk Breakfast. Is a merger between Reform UK and the Tories necessary to keep a left-wing rainbow coalition out of power? This is a voice note from Sally.
Good morning, Mark. Nigel Farage, if he makes a pact with the Tories, he will lose a lot of votes. A lot of Labour voters voted for reform and will vote for reform, but not if he makes a pact with the Tories. He will lose a lot of votes. Sally, Lincolnshire.
Sally, thank you for kicking off the conversation this morning. Dave says, good morning, Mark. The SNP will demand another independence referendum as a price for their support. I'm not sure Starmer would go for that. Dave, I think Starmer would do anything to stay in power, to be quite honest with you. Good morning, Mark, says Steph. The people who want complete change are pinning their hopes on reform. But if they carry on recruiting washed-up Tories, that change will never happen. How about this? Mark, you've got this really wrong. Kemi is not the problem. I like Kemi. I'd vote for her. The problem is not the Tories that are going to reform either. The problem is the Lib Dems in blue ties behind her who will say, oh, let's back her and leave the ECHR. And then if she won, would stop it and get rid of her. They say stop every Tory policy. Fool me once, it's on you. Fool me twice, it's on me. Until they're rooted out and gone, I can't vote Tory as much as I like Kemi. That's the issue. There are so many people within the party and on those Tory back benches who are closet Lib Dems, Piers.
Yes, I suspect so, and they're also remarkably silent at the moment. I mean, in opposition, it's tough being in opposition because you have to work much harder to get your share of voice. Yeah. You have to be inventive, you have to be creative, and you have to be hard-working at it all the time. And up till now, Kemi hasn't been that much on the front foot. Robert Jenrick's been doing all the hard graft. Mel Stride a little bit, but the rest of them, can you name the Tory front bench? I can't. I mean, and let alone the back benchers. I mean, they're not a very appealing bunch.
No, and you've got a chairman in Kevin Hollinrake who decides to compare Reform UK to the Nazis based upon a tweet that he sent out with a Nazi gold coin and then a bit of merchandise from Reform UK. Yeah, they don't get it, do they?
No, I think that was very, very stupid. But I think the party that I would, if I was a member of, I'd be most upset by are the Lib Dems. They got 79 seats in the election, and what have they built on it? Nothing. They're going down in the polls. They're going, I mean, their whole kind of philosophy is based on we might get in a coalition with Labour. So Ed Davey doesn't ever speak about anything of any substance, anything of any that matters. They don't appear to have any policies. And Ed Davey still, by the way, has yet to apologise properly for the post office shambles, where he was the minister for the post office, and he cannot wriggle out of that. He was ultimately responsible for all those prosecutions, and which was been already proven to be the greatest miscarriage of justice ever in this country. And who was responsible? Ed Davey.
How
on earth he's leading a party, no, I don't know.
It's astonishing. He also was the head of the department that cancelled any future nuclear projects for this country in the coalition government.
Yep.
And is very proud of the fact that that's what he did. Well, we'd have a lot more steady energy supply if we had more nuclear right now. I think the complaint by the Lib Dems, who were part of the coalition in 2010, is that if we went for a new nuclear project, it wouldn't be online until about 2021. Well, look, here we are in 2025, and we'd bite your hand off for it now.
Well, I mean, the thought of the Lib Dems being part of another coalition government, look what a mess they made of everything they did the last time. I mean, you know, they're almost as bad as this lot. They're not quite as anti-democratic, but they're getting close to it in the way that they are failing to actually stand up in the House and call this government into question.
Well, the big disappointment with the Lib Dems is how incredibly left-wing they've become, how radical, how woke the party has become, alienating moderate figures like Vince Cable, who wasn't a bad business secretary in the coalition government. He was very supportive of the austerity measures, which, let's be honest, was simply living within our means. One of the positives of that coalition was getting the debt to GDP ratio down. I think it was about 10% as a percentage of our GDP. It came down to about 2% in 5 years. So they showed some political will there, but that's not the same party now. This is a new party that thinks there are 100 genders, that wants to go back into the EU, that has a visceral hatred of the leader of the free world, our greatest political and economic ally, Donald Trump.
And their policies, many of their policies on the environment are more green than the Green Party. And the Green Party's policies now just seem to be sheer lunacy rather than actually anything to do with the Greens. I mean, they want to cancel the police force. They want to make all landlords illegal. I mean, these are just policies that are madness. How anyone can vote for them, I just don't understand, I must say.
Steve has messaged the show. Good morning, Mark. Great show. Piers, your guest, needs to know the public have just seen the Conservatives what they are. Flat out liars. Cleverly and Badenoch both saying elections must go ahead. Next poll for reform goes up guaranteed. This is Nigel in Brighton. He says, good morning, Mark. Reference your guest Piers' point about being surprised that there hasn't been more of a public uproar regarding Starmer cancelling the May elections. The reason is simple. They don't know about it. I kept a close eye on the BBC News app on Friday. It was not reported at all. Unfortunately, around 60% of the population get their news passively from our far-left national broadcaster. Slightly different in March of this year when there were rumours Trump was going to change the constitution and stand for a third term. The BBC commentators were apoplectic and saying how wrong it was. Happy Christmas, says Nigel.
Yep, he makes a very good point there, because the BBC simply parrot what The Guardian writes now when it comes to news and political coverage. It is actually shocking they haven't mentioned this. I'm glad to say in the Sunday Times today, Rod Liddell, a brilliant political columnist, has written a very strong piece about it. And even the Electoral Commission, actually normally beloved by The Guardian and the BBC, have come out very strongly against what has happened here, and yet this is not reported by the BBC or indeed The Guardian. Shocking, really.
Sharon says, good morning, Mark. Reform need to stop recruiting the leftovers of the Tory government. Nadine Dorries, for example, he needs to get rid of her ASAP. Of course, she was the biggest cheerleader of Boris Johnson. This is the guy responsible for the Boris wave of mass immigration, the guy responsible for, in my view, the COVID overreaction and the embracing of net zero. Colin says, hi, Mark, if all of these other parties joined Labour, they would all fall out very quickly and have in-house fighting. It would be chaos. That coalition would fall apart rapidly and a fresh general election would be called. Paul says, I'm starting to think Farage is scared to do what's necessary. Muslims are centre of his party now, which will stop real change. I fear Farage wants establishment acceptance. And of course, that's what would happen if there was a merger between the two parties.
Yeah, I mean, the merger, I mean, having talked about it, I am just talking about it as a realistic political commentator. I'm not saying I support it, and it's fraught with difficulty. But the point is, there may come a point, and we are still a long way off a general election, where the polls are telling them if they don't come together, they're going to get basically wiped out by the coalition that will become so powerful. They will then introduce proportional representation, which I'm sure they will do if the three of them got into power. I think the Lib Dems would make that the price for the coalition, because it's something that they are not talking about at the moment, but they will do. And in fact, the Lib Dems also, the Labour Party were talking about it themselves. Yeah. But if they got a strong coalition, they would introduce it, because that would then, in their view, keep the centre or the right out of any chance of power permanently.
What would a merger look like?
Well, I don't know at this stage, because it depends when it happens and how it would come about.
It would have to be a movement led by Nigel Farage, wouldn't it?
Well, Farage would have to agree to it, and at the moment he is making it absolutely clear there's no question about a merger. The Conservatives, on the other hand, many feel that by coming together and having effectively Nigel as their leader would give them a much better chance at the next election. And if they can't have him as the leader of the Conservatives, it's better to be under his umbrella than not under the umbrella. It is possible they might instead of having a merger, agree to fight seats in a tactical way, or come up with some sort of cooperative plan rather than a fully fledged merger. That is also a possibility. I think as we get nearer the election and the mood changes of the people, because, you know, as I keep saying, you know, the old adage of a week's a long time in politics. 3 years is a very long time in politics. There's an awful lot could happen. And don't forget, globally, we're in a very, very tricky situation at the moment. We also have a very dangerous situation for everyone in this country, in that Starmer is increasingly and by stealth getting closer and closer to going back into the European Union, which will simply cost us billions of pounds. And one thing no one has even focused on this week is with Ukraine and the EU showing how spineless they have been in not supporting the Ukraine properly or standing up to Trump, and then failing to use the frozen assets of the Russians to help out Ukraine, and having to come up with their own loan. No one has made it clear yet, has Britain contributed to this loan? I think Starmer owes a little bit of a statement to the British people, because it's our money he's talking about. Have we put billions in?
Yeah.
I mean, in March, he pledged 2.3 billion as a loan to Ukraine. The UK banks were based on the profits of Russian frozen assets. The banks have said were unhappy about that, and as far as I know, that 2.3 billion has yet to be loaned. The other week he spoke in the House about the money owed by Roman Abramovich of 2.5 billion over the sale of Chelsea, and trying to get action to get access to that. It seems he can't get access, and no one can. What's the point of freezing these assets if you can't use them? Something very wrong here. But what I do want to know, and I think the British people deserve to know, and quickly, from Starmer, is have we backed Ukraine?
Yeah, we need answers, don't we? Good morning, Mark, says Betty. Sunak was honest and right, but nobody, especially his own party, would listen. Tories can't be trusted not to just spend another 4 years fighting. We need a military junta to take over. Reform cannot be successful. Where will they get 450 proper candidates? I see the emails from the party. They are struggling. This from Neil. Good morning, Mark and Piers. If Reform didn't have the ex-Tories, who would they have that has an inkling of how to run a country? And Vinny says if there were a coalition between Reform and the Conservatives, who would sit in the big chair? Rachel Reeves sparks fresh fury. That's next.
I know polling can be a strange old thing, but they're pretty consistent in favour of Reform right now.
Well, and Reform did extremely well in this year's local elections in May. I mean, they're sweeping the board in all sorts of unlikely places, in effect replacing the Conservative Party as the main.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
6:53 Talk Breakfast. This from Dan in Kent. Good morning, Mark. I suggest anyone with entrepreneurial right-wing thoughts should leave Europe immediately. Europe is lost either to Islam or Putin. The useful idiots will be used and spat out, and then we'll return to regain our land. The woke politicians and media are destroying our culture. Sean says, good morning, Mark and Piers. Keith Stalin needs to go now, no question, but so does the Labour Party. And Keith Stalin is such a bitter and spiteful cretin. If he was removed, I think he would call an election out of vindictiveness against those that are trying to remove him. Good. The Tories are no better. For every good policy they have, they sneak a load of bad ones in through the back door. Very untrustworthy. We need to give reform a chance. And even if they only achieve 10% of what they say, it will massively change our fortunes. We've got another story, which is, I've got to say, making quite a bit of noise in today's front pages. Your Bard Rachel, this is an exclusive in the Mail on Sunday. Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, has been barred from her local pub because of her crippling tax rises, bringing the hospitality industry to its knees. Landlord Martin Knowles has told the Chancellor not to try to enjoy a festive pint in the Marsh Inn in her Leeds constituency after he was hit with a £2,500 hike in business rates. That, of course, follows the Nix tax raid and the inflationary policies of this Chancellor. What do you make of these bans, these pub bans, restaurant bans of Labour MPs?
Terrific. I'm all for them. And in fact, the very first one, I think, was one I was behind in Newbury many years ago. It was actually against a Lib Dem MP called David Rendell. And the campaign ran End the Hell of Rendell. And he was very anti, of course, the countryside, anti-hunting. Yeah. He was a local doctor. And we got the pubs to put stickers on the door saying, Rendell, you're banned, you can't come in. And when he took his wife out for dinner to a very famous watering hole in Cheveley one evening, he actually found himself, the landlord said, no, you can't come in, you see the sign? And this, I don't know how, somehow made the newspapers, and he in fact lost the election, a big majority, to Richard Benyon, who was quietly very amused about the campaign. And it was because the Lib Dems didn't understand the countryside properly, and they were very anti-hunting in a constituency where hunting was actually very important to the economy, which it still is. The Greens, the Labour, of course, are introducing a new paper, I think next week, about the countryside, which is going to ban trail hunting. Completely spiteful and unnecessary.
Most definitely, but can I throw a spanner in the works? Is it not a dangerous precedent to start banning MPs from hospitality venues? Because what happens if the shoe's on the other foot? What happens if we have another Conservative government or a Reform UK government, and then you've got, you know, restaurateurs and pub owners in sort of trendy East London who'll say, oh, no Reform MPs are allowed in here? Yeah. It becomes a bit tit for tat. And is it not the right indulging in cancel culture themselves?
Yes, you could. That's a fair point, and it's a good point. But I mean, I think when your business is being, and livelihood is being very badly directly affected by someone, as in this case, this pub, the Marsh Inn, in Rachel Reeves' own constituency, where she actually went when she was made Chancellor and is photographed with the landlord and his wife. Yeah. And she was using it for publicity herself when she became a Chancellor.
She told people like this man that
she said she was going to be good for business.
Yeah. She said, please vote for me and I've got your back.
And now, what's she done? Put up all the business rates, put up national insurance. It's driving the hospitality industry, and particularly pubs, out of business. So this publican has every right to say, why should I serve the woman who has caused me so much anguish and is may be going to cost me my livelihood. He is entirely justified, and that is why I support him 100% on that. And in the case in Newbury, when we did it there, that was because directly this MP, the sitting MP, was going to damage the local farming community by introducing very damaging legislation, and had showed no real interest in the rural community which he was supposed to serve. And if you cannot actually do something, as elections only happen every 5 years, in the local environment, making your voice heard is very difficult, particularly if you cancel local elections. And if you do start cancelling local elections, as a government, you're going to have to expect more unrest socially. And I'm afraid to say, I think we're going to see more and more unrest, more and more than just, instead of what I would describe as a very passive demonstration, into something slightly more sinister. I think we live in very worrying times when a government starts acting like a banana republic dictator. Very worrying.
OK, well, of course, this Labour government would defend its record. It would point out that the Tories destroyed the economy and public services for 14 years. They've got a strong mandate to make a positive change for the country, that it will take time, but they'll get there. And, of course, they'll defend their cancellation of elections based upon boundary changes. But it's all about opinions. What's yours? Do the Tories and Reform need to merge? That's next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
.702. Wakey, wakey, rise and shine. Happy Sunday, one and all. It's Mark Dolan with you on Talk Breakfast until 10 a.m. It's my last talk show of the year. Lovely to have your company. We're back in the new year. Fridays, Saturdays and Sundays, 6 a.m. till 10 a.m. Your weekend starts here. And breaking this morning, a shock new poll sees the Tories closing the gap to just 3 points behind Reform. So is a pre-election deal between Kemi Badenoch and Nigel Farage the only way to stop Labour winning the next election? Should the two parties merge? Let me know your thoughts. 0344 499 1000. Text the word talk in your message to 87222 or leave me a voice note. Isabel is taking your calls today. Davis is directing our TV output. If you're listening to the show, lovely to have your company. If you'd like to watch, head to YouTube, search Talk and up we pop. Engineer Dave is pressing the buttons and executive producer Dean Spencer has put the show together, and we've got so many talking points. What do you think about the idea of Reform and the Tories getting into bed together? There is a concern now that a left-wing rainbow coalition made up of Labour, the Greens, the Lib Dems and the SNP could be a forever government, introducing proportional representation. We would have a left-leaning administration for the rest of time. So does that need to be stopped, and do the Tories and Reform need to collaborate to make that happen? Meanwhile, as pressure grows on the BBC to cancel 2 of David Walliams' shows over the Christmas period, is the Little Britain star the victim of a woke witch hunt? And Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor is photographed draped over several women and reportedly having taken disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein's girlfriend Ghislaine Maxwell to a royal property, Sandringham no less. Should the King take further measures to deal with his scandal-hit younger brother? And a gun-toting illegal immigrant who called for death to all Jews is free to roam the streets. We've got the inside story. And Labour's war on cars worsens, with the government drastically reducing the number of parking spaces on new build properties. It's already a nightmare trying to park close to where you live. Well, they're going to reduce it further. This is by design. This government don't want you to have the independence and freedom of your own vehicle. Well, I say, on your bike. That is today's Dolan's Dispatch in an hour's time. It's at 8 a.m. It might get me cancelled. Good. So with the threat of a left-wing rainbow coalition, is it time for the Tories and the Reform UK party to merge? Let me know your thoughts on that. Let's have a look at some front pages. The Mail on Sunday. You're barred, Rachel. Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, has been barred from her own local pub because of her crippling tax rises, bringing the hospitality industry to its knees. The Sun on Sunday. Josser death threat. That's an EastEnders star who's experienced death threats via email, which is very concerning. Sunday Express. Shops face last Christmas as recession fears grow. Sunday Telegraph. Motorists face new parking space ban. That's the topic of today's Dolan's Dispatch in an hour's time. BBC under pressure to drop shows with Walliams. And Andrew took Ghislaine Maxwell to Sandringham. Epstein Files show. Another story on the front page of the Telegraph. A majority of Jews no longer feel safe in Britain. And let me tell you, folks, that if Jewish people don't feel safe in Britain, we are not a proper country. Jewish people always have been and always will be the canary in the coal mine of a free society. The Sunday Times. Dying is worthwhile, Palestine Action hunger striker says in jail phone call. Spies invasion fear as Beijing buys up homes across London. And another story in the Sunday Times. Forces new inquiry over Maccabi fans ban. Sunday Mirror. Following in Grand's footsteps, Prince George's visit to Diana homeless shelter. And The Observer. I wonder why anyone would want to be PM. Wes Streeting on leadership, the doctors' strike, and why UK taxes are too high. Well, that's unfortunate because he's a government minister. If you think taxes are too high, why don't you resign from the cabinet? That would probably do your leadership ambitions no end of good. Reacting to the big stories of the day, I'm delighted to welcome public relations guru and political commentator Piers Pottinger. Good morning, Piers.
Good morning, Mark.
Is a Reform UK Conservative coalition a deal, a pre-election pact, is it now inevitable?
I don't think it's inevitable, no. But I think it is a possibility. And I think it's something that both sides may end up having to consider nearer the time of the election.
Now, so many of my viewers and listeners are horrified at the idea
I'm
that
sure they
reform
are,
would
yeah.
go to bed with the Tories. They're thinking 14 years of open borders, net zero madness and wokery. So what can you say to my audience? How can you rationalise this as a public relations guru? How can you sell the idea that the two parties need to work together for an audience that do not want to hear that message?
Well,
good luck.
You don't want to.
I'll get a coffee. I'll see you in an hour.
You don't sell it. I mean, the point is, it's not actually necessary now, with the way things are looking, but it could be in 3 years' time, around the time of an election. At the moment, the Greens are the fastest growing party in this country, which is very worrying given their policies and their leader. Very worrying. You've got the Lib Dems who are hoping for a coalition with the Labour Party, so they're making no inroads or any worthwhile attacks on
providing no
them.
opposition whatsoever.
None at all.
I mean, they are basically just a sort of offshoot of the Labour movement now,
and they
aren't
get regular questions at question time in the House. The Reform Party get no questions because they've only got 4 MPs. I mean, the whole thing is skew with at the moment.
Reform got 6 million votes, I think, at the election, and Lib Dems 4.5 million.
Yeah. You see, the
democratic deficit.
It is a very strange situation at the moment. There's no question most people towards the right at the moment, I think, would like to see Farage as the next Prime Minister. And in order for him to be the next Prime Minister, he may have to look at a merger with the Conservatives to outmaneuver Labour, who will be tying up with these other parties.
Yeah.
It is not an attractive idea for anyone, but I think it might be more attractive than having Labour in power for the foreseeable future and doing incredible damage to all of us, our children and our grandchildren, because that's what they will do if they are allowed to be there. In order to stop them, this is only in an emergency, and we're not there yet, but I can see the value of this coming together. And the point is, I think it'll only happen if there is a genuine wish by supporters of both parties. It'll only happen that way. I don't see it being imposed by either party on anyone else.
Well, I'm going to re-pitch this to you and to our audience who are listening on the radio and watching on the telly. And I would say the merger is wrong.
Yep.
Pre-election pact is wrong. I think what you're going to have is a takeover. I think that Farage must become the leader of a conservative reform new project. Reform Plus, call it what you like.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, I mean, that's what it would
if Farage
effect
is
be,
not the driving force behind it, if this is some kind of partnership between Kemi Badenoch and Nigel Farage, good luck with that.
Yeah, that won't work.
Kemi's only wanted to leave the ECHR like 3 minutes ago. She thinks it's a good idea.
But
3 minutes ago, she thinks that net zero is a bad idea. 3 minutes ago, she thinks that wokery in our public institutions is a bad idea. 3 minutes ago, she decided open borders are bad, right? She's had a Damascene conversion. I don't know if she's been to the, one of those places where they take mind-altering substances and she's suddenly become a conservative. But she was a standard bearer for all of those policies in government.
Yeah, look, I don't disagree with what you're saying. What I'm saying is that, of course, in the case of any merger, it's really a takeover. It's just being positioned as a merger in order to keep both sides happy temporarily. In reality, of course, it would be a takeover, and of course it would mean Farage leading. If they were
What would it be called?
Good question. New Conservative.
I think that the problem is with the second word.
Reformed Conservative.
Well, that's it.
Reformed Conservative.
Or is it just Reform UK that swallows the true Conservatives?
It could be that. It could be that.
Because I think branding is everything.
I mean, the way things are going, even though Kemi, as I say, is performing better, and despite this poll, which I'm not 100%.
Oh yes, so
behind.
Ashcroft, Lord Ashcroft, who's a Conservative peer.
Yeah,
he's a big cheerleader for the Tory movement, isn't he?
He is. He's a great supporter, and he's nothing if not loyal to the Conservatives. He, in fact, would like to run the Conservatives, and he's made no secret of that. He writes regularly for the Daily Mail. He writes books supporting various Tory causes, attacking. He's done a biography of Labour leaders, and he's guaranteed to do something to support the Conservatives.
He's a Tory hack, an establishment shill.
But he's not one of the leading polling firms in the UK.
What does he think of Nigel?
Probably
Probably hates Nigel.
I don't know what he thinks of him, but I would hope Nigel is wary of Ashcroft.
A lot of Tories detest Nigel, don't they?
Yes, they do. They do, yes. Because he's successful, he's a man of the people, and I mean, a lot of it's jealousy, quite frankly. And again, I mean, most recently, of course, the Labour Party, who failing to find scoring points against reform by attacking their policies or what they stand for, as they can't do that because it doesn't work, they've started going back to the chap's childhood and trying to smear him there, which is just the most pathetic approach I think I've ever seen in politics.
Yeah.
I mean, I hate to think what Starmer was like as a little boy, maybe actually so insignificant no one took any notice of him, but I doubt that. He was probably running a milk scam in this class or something, I don't know. But I mean, once you start attacking a schoolboy playground banter, and that's the sole line of attack, I mean, that shows you just how desperate the Labour Party have become. I mean, we have the Mayor of London, the wonderful Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan. I say wonderful in an ironic way, a sarcastic way rather. He has just spent, believe it or not, Mark, £500,000 of a Londoner's money by buying exotic white storks and
yikes,
attempting to rewild them in Dagenham, that well-known exotic bird park in Essex. So the thing is, these white storks, as he makes clear, used to exist in Dagenham, but that was in 1640, and that's not 20 to 5 in 24-hour time. It's the year 1640, and these birds were actually driven to extinction because the good folk of Dagenham ate them, as they were so poor they had no food. Well, maybe Sadiq Khan for once is being very prophetic and looking into the long term by putting these birds there to give the good people of Dagenham some food in the future.
I've got no doubt.
Because the way this Labour government's going, they won't have any money.
No, we'll be eating the wildlife before the next election because we'll be so broke. It really is a race to the bottom, isn't it? But Piers, we love your common sense overview about the big stories of the day. Always talk so much sense. Will you have a dilemma as regards to who to vote for at the next election?
Yes. Yes, I will.
What are your misgivings about, for example, voting Tory again?
Their lack of real vision and their lack of, at the moment, real policies. I mean, if you ask people what their Conservative values are, what does the Conservative Party stand for?
Yeah.
Under Margaret Thatcher, I could tell you straight away. Under Kemi Badenoch, I don't know.
And that's a worry. Very rare that Piers doesn't know something. Piers, thank you so much for coming into the studio. Have an excellent Christmas.
And you, Mark.
And we'll catch up in the new year. With the threat of a left-wing rainbow coalition from hell, featuring the Greens, the Lib Dems, Labour and the SNP, do the Tories and Reform need to merge to keep Labour out of government? This is Talk Breakfast.
States. We've got the world that Richard Dawkins wanted. And he promised us we had got rid of all of silly Christianity, we'd have flying cars. Can't see any of those. We'd have great rationality. There's people out there who think there are 87 genders, and we'd have peace on earth. Well, this time last week, I saw a crowd of people screaming Allahu Akbar on Park Lane in the centre of London, calling for the release of a convicted jihadist terrorist.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
You are listening to Talk Breakfast at 7:20 in the morning. I'm delighted to say that our assistant producer and call screener this morning is Isabel. She's already delivered. I've got a full switchboard, and let's kick off. Who should we start with? Mary is in Hemel Hempstead. Mary, top of the morning. Welcome to Talk Breakfast.
Good morning, Mark.
Mary, full disclosure. This is my last show until the new year. I'm going to miss you terribly.
Oh, I'm going to miss you, Mark. I missed you when you were on GB News.
I'm not familiar with that company. I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm glad.
Listen, Mary, let me tell you something. I couldn't be happier here at Talk, the Home of Common Sense, and love your company on a regular basis. You talk a lot of sense. By the way, what are your plans for Christmas?
I'm going to my daughter and her husband.
Oh, that's good. And so after your years of toil as a nurturer and a carer and a mother, it's time for someone to look after you. Is that it?
Well, she does very well. She lives next door to me.
Oh, that's handy. So you can actually have a very short walk, and then you can stagger home at the end of Christmas Day.
If I want to, yes.
Glad to hear it. Well, look, Mary, have a lovely Christmas. What do you think about this? I've got to say the messages are furious at the idea of the Tories and Reform merging. But what if it's necessary to keep Labour out of power?
Well, it could possibly be, but I think it's too early. They don't need to at the moment. They've got, as I say, 3 years. But in that 3 years, if, say, Kemi Badenoch is still there, she has got to clear out the Lib Dems that are in there, because a lot of her party are left-wing.
Yeah.
So unless she can achieve that, it won't happen. But if she can, as I say, there's 3 years to go yet. Regards to, so I just hope if she sorts it out, then I can't see any problem too badly with it. But I think that Nigel has got to, or the Reform have got to be the lead party, not the Tories.
Yes,
but
would you accept, Mary, would you accept a new brand such as, you know, the Reform Conservatives or the New Conservatives or something like that? Has it got to be Reform UK still?
Well, I think so, because a lot of people just absolutely hate the Tories.
Yeah.
They hate them as much as they do, Starmer's government. You know, it's a funny thing how corrupt Parliament seems to have become. The way the Reform are never allowed to ask questions.
Shocking.
Lindsay Hoyle is supposed to be fair, but he's a Labour man himself, so he's not likely to be fair. You know, and this business, they're talking now, I can't believe it. They're going to bring in a ban of trail hunting because of other wildlife that might get upset. What do they think they're doing to the wildlife, covering fields with solar panels? Deer and whatever can't graze there with all that stuff there, or rabbits or whatever. I just can't understand their mentality.
Mary, you're so right, and that is the topic of today's Dolan's Dispatch, because the government are reducing the number of parking spaces in new builds because they don't want us in cars. And if we have a car, Mary, it's got to be electric. Well, in my view, the environmental movement, Mary, is very bad for the environment, because what does it involve? It involves electric cars, which involve precious minerals, enormous energy inputs to make them, and then these cars are useless after a few years and will cause damage when you chuck them in landfill. And it's the same with those windmills that are useless after 15 years, and it's the same with the solar panels, which are incredibly toxic, made of materials, Mary, that, wait for it, can't be recycled.
I know, and you know, evidently you have to, these solar panels, they have to be kept clean because they get covered with dust. I don't see armies of people going around cleaning these solar panels.
No, and the thing about the solar panels, Mary, they're not made in a kind of artisan workshop in Worcestershire, are they? They come from China.
And the point is, they're covering acres of good productive farmland. And where does I can't understand how they. What are they going to do? Ban horse riding next? Because you might tread on a worm.
I tell you, that might be line of the day. Mary, Merry Christmas to you. Best wishes to your daughter and your son-in-law as well. My goodness, I bet she read a good one. Mary, we'll see you in the new year. Look forward to that. I'm back, by the way. Oh, yes, go on, Mary. Don't want to interrupt you.
Can I just say about Rachel Reeves and the pub?
Please.
She's not the sort of person that will go in a pub anyway. She's too...
No, she would be a party pooper, wouldn't she? Because you'd be at the bar ordering a large gin and tonic, maybe a pint of Asahi, and she'd be saying, oh, I won't have a drink because of the black hole that we inherited from the Tories.
No, what she would do, she would say she'd order drinks all round and then tell the landlord he had to pay for it.
Mary, you're a genius. Let me tell you that, and I don't say that lightly. We'll catch up in the new year. Mary in Hemel Hempstead, Georgina is in the capital, and Georgina, I want to talk about the Chancellor of the Exchequer, discussing this with producer Dean this morning, and he is absolutely spitting in rage at the impact on hospitality from the last budget. Front page of the Mail on Sunday, Georgina, your Bard, furious landlord bans Chancellor from her local pub over tax hikes crippling the hospitality industry. Why is this Georgina, is this an important story?
Well, it's not just important for our hospitality industry, it's also important for our high street. I mean, between the ridiculously high taxation that Rachel Reeves has imposed on our small businesses and online shopping, the high streets and hospitality of yesterday and today didn't have a chance of survival. The tax-paying population have been taxed to oblivion, Mark. They haven't got the disposable income now that they once had to go on their Christmas shopping sprees or go out for a meal or a drink, as this government has bled them dry for every last penny to pay for their ever-increasing expenditures. We haven't got the money that we once had to spend on ourselves. The days of walking down the high streets looking into beautifully decorated shop windows for your Christmas gifts or indeed your weekly grocery shopping are long gone. The days when you had individual shops for fruit and vegetables, your local butcher, your haberdashery shop, your shoe shop and dress shops are now only a distant memory. All you have now are supermarkets and Turkish barbers. There isn't even a need to venture outside of your home to restock your larder if you don't want to, as this can all be done online from the comfort of your armchair. It seems as if you're not meant to venture outside of your domicile anymore. You're not meant to drive anymore for fear of polluting the atmosphere. You're not meant to use cash, as it's not traceable. If we don't go out, or if we do go out, we're followed by Big Brother surveillance cameras wherever we go. We are, in fact, afraid to use our high streets or our local pubs because of the threat of being mugged for our phones or our jewellery. Or worst case scenario, the ever-increasing threat of an Islamic terrorist attack. So all in all, when you take all of this into consideration, I'm not surprised that the high streets of today are basically a barren wasteland, and the way things are going, sadly, they will just become another distant memory of our once British culture that we've lost to communism and cultural diversity. And can I just say, after that very sad news, I'd like to wish you and Piers a very happy Christmas.
Well, Georgina, you are such a voice of common sense on this network. I love having you on the show. I love hearing you on other shows as well. You're the only person that can silence Julia Hartley-Brewer, with your incredible truth bombs, your articulacy. I want today's show to be a celebration of the people that watch and listen to this show. This programme today, 4 hours dedicated to the likes of your good self and to Mary and to Des in Shropshire and Marie in Gloucestershire who are calling the programme this morning. Because we do need to call out, Georgina, the manner in which our country is changing beyond belief at an unprecedented scale and speed for which no one, Georgina, voted.
Well, I don't recognise my wonderful country, the country that I was born in many, many eons ago and grown up in. I don't recognise this country anymore. They say that cultural diversity is our strength. Well, I feel that cultural diversity is our Achilles heel, and it's brought our country to its knees. And unless we do something very quickly, Mark, we're not going to be able to stand up again, because the country is going downhill at a rapid rate of knots, and this government is doing all it can to take it down to levels which I don't think we've ever been before.
Georgina, how do we save the country? What are those levers that you would pull? What are those mechanisms that you would engage?
Well, I think we need to get a grip on the immigration.
I mean, we've got to stop the boats. We've got to close the border, right? The door
Absolutely.
is closed.
Well, I think, you know, all this umming and ahhing and making these people welcome has got to stop. We have got to start looking after the people of our country, the elderly, the disabled, our veterans. We've got to start nurturing our children, our little boys, our little girls, and stop vilifying our little boys and our men for the sake of, diverting blame because of other problems that are going on in this country.
Oh, so what we're doing is we're importing predatory men with medieval values towards women. And then what we're going to do is in the classroom lecture young British kids about being misogynists. Make it make sense, Georgina.
Well, that's what's happening, you see, because the government don't want to own up to the faux pas. And it's not just this government, Mark. I've got to say, it's the government prior. It was the Conservatives before who have made this problem what it is today. You know, Boris with his open borders. It's not a good thing, and it's getting worse by the day. And what's happening is they are diverting the blame from the true problem, which is these men who are coming over from totally cultural, different backgrounds, who have no respect for women whatsoever. And they're putting the blame on our youngsters and our young men. And this is totally abhorrent. And I'm totally sick of it. It's got to stop. And we, as the British public, have got to make our voices heard and say, no, enough is most definitely enough. I've heard enough is enough so many times. I'm blue in the face with it. But we need to make a stand now and sort this out, because our little boys need nurturing. They need love, they need affection, and they need to be told that they are important and a necessary part of our culture and our society, instead of being vilified left, right and centre by this communist regime that we have at the moment.
Georgina, Merry Christmas to you. Happy New Year. I'm only going to have a Happy New Year if you're part of it, because we love taking your call and I love to take all of your calls. That was Georgina in London. 0344 499 1000. Isabel is taking your calls. She is our assistant producer today. Absolutely knocking it out of the park. I've got an absolutely heaving switchboard. So many strong views on a variety of issues, including anger around Rachel Reeves and the economy. A war on the high street. A war on motorists is the topic of today's Dolan's Dispatch at 8 o'clock. You don't want to miss it. It might get me cancelled. Good. But next up, in order to keep Nigel Farage out of number 10, are Labour planning a secret squirrel plan to do a deal with the Greens, the Lib Dems and the SNP? I'll be asking a Labour councillor next.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
7:34. Would Labour do a deal with the Greens, the Lib Dems and the SNP to keep Nigel Farage out of number 10? Let's ask a good friend of mine. Sebastian Salek is a Labour councillor. Good morning, Sebastian. Welcome back to Talk Breakfast.
Good morning, Mark, and Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Definitely not too soon to be saying that now. And before you get the mistletoe out for that big smooch, I want to ask you about that. Clearly, the parties of the left disagree with each other on a range of policy areas, but they're united in their dislike of Nigel Farage. Could they work together to keep him out of number 10?
Look, I mean, he had a really interesting line from Zach Polanski earlier in the week saying that he would be open to something like that. And of course, that's pre-election. That's about working together to block Nigel Farage. I think if you're talking about what happens afterwards, that's a very different discussion. And all parties will tell you, we're going for gold, we don't want to do any deals. Sometimes that turns out not to be the case. Look at Theresa May in 2017. She had to do something with DUP to get her Brexit deal through. So I think you're right that there is a very strong anti-Farage bloc, and I think that exists within the voter base as well. There will be many people who will think about their vote in 2028, 29, whenever we go to the polls, in terms of how can I keep Farage out? And that is their right, democratically. They can make that decision. The other thing to say, though, is we are sitting here at the tail end of 2025. Farage looking, he's doing all right. He's coming down a little bit in the polls, but still very much dominating. We just don't know what 28, 29 will look like. It could be a very, very different electoral picture. And that's the big challenge for him, is holding on to what he's got. It's no surprise that he's trying to plant the seed of a 2027 election because it's what he so desperately wants and arguably needs. Unlikely to happen, though, and that presents challenges for reform.
Sebastian, it's the view of some political commentators that notwithstanding Reform's commanding lead in the polls, that they cannot form an administration and win a majority in the House of Commons if the parties of the left work together, perhaps, for example, before the election, not fielding candidates in certain constituencies. But actually this assumption of a Reform victory is wide of the mark.
What are you asking specifically? Sorry, whether Reform can win in...
Well, but what I'm hearing from some political commentators is actually if the left parties work together, Farage can't win. Is that a view you would share?
I think it's less about the parties and more about the voters working together, whether they intend to or not. I just think so many people in this divided country that we live in, sadly, are so put off by the idea of a Farage premiership that they would vote however they need to.
What if, for example, the Lib Dems said, had a meeting with Keir Starmer and they said, look, in 21 constituencies, we won't run a candidate, or we won't leaflet. We'll have a passive campaign. Which is enough to support the arithmetic of keeping Farage out of power. I just wonder whether you might share that view that actually Farage needs to do something with the Tories if he wants to become Prime Minister.
Yeah, I mean, look, the Lib Dems are welcome to do what they want. We saw that kind of deal happen, really, and the last time it did, the architect was Farage. He stood aside his Brexit Party candidates in 2019 to allow Tories to win. So he's not beneath that kind of electioneering either. Does he need to do a deal? Probably, but the problem is, all of that chatter about the uni party is not necessarily coming from him directly, but that kind of rhetoric won't do him any favours if he stands by that, because you're then going to have to go to the Tories and try to have a conversation. At the moment, the direction of travel seems to be going in the opposite direction. You've got a lot of ex-Tories joining Reform, and it feels like that merger, if it's going to happen, will happen naturally by attrition, and it's just lots and lots of Tories coming over, which again presents an electoral challenge, because how would you convince the voters you're not just the Tories in new branding? I really think, and I've said this to you before, that we shouldn't write off the Tories. They're a natural part of their cycle where it's not going to look good for them, but they are arguably one of the most successful political parties in the world in history. Much to my chagrin, they make a very formidable opponent, and I really think that they will recover and they will form a very credible opposition again. And I say this really as a warning to people people in my party. Let's not forget about the Tories, because we will be fighting them again and again and again.
But the Tories recovering would be good news for Labour, wouldn't it? Because that's the right divided.
Depends at what cost. If the Tories recover at the cost of reform, then it's just a bit of a rebalancing on the right, isn't it? And you have to think about your electoral strategy. If they suddenly start taking votes from, I don't know, say the Lib Dems or Labour, then yeah, we probably have more of a problem. If they have more of an addressable market they can capture, I'd be really intrigued to see how Nigel Farage responds to that. He's had a really good year, hasn't he? 2025 has been positive for reform. The challenge, as ever, is keeping that going and tackling whatever 2026 has in store. We don't know necessarily that Farage has the power to do that, because he thrives off negativity, disdain, and just a general sense of fatigue. If the Tories can capture that energy, then he will be out of tricks, I think.
What are the Lib Dems up to? They look like Labour light at the moment, don't they?
The Lib Dems are a funny one, aren't they? Because they did, for them, quite well in 2024. And they don't really seem to have done much with it. You don't hear much from them. They're not really capturing a sense of the public mood. So to me, I'm afraid it feels like a bit of a wasted opportunity at the moment. Look, I'm supportive of democracy. I want to see parties thrive. I want to see them doing well. Of course, not at the expense of my own party. I'm a member for a reason. But I think that being able to work collaboratively is really important and push issues that different parties care about together. But yeah, it is strange, isn't it? You would expect to hear a little bit more noise out of them, given the number of MPs that they have.
Is this a Labour councillor that's on the national radio and television airwaves saying they're a fan of democracy, having cancelled a whole bunch of elections?
See, that's a funny one. No, look, I think devolution is really important, and I think giving people a say in what happens locally is really important. And we really don't have enough of that, certainly in England compared to other countries. And that's why Labour is bringing in these metro mayors, which are going to cover broader areas than a typical council area and allow you to have a say in things like transport, the local economy and all the rest of it, which is really valuable, I think, for voters to have that direct relationship with a mayor. The result of that is, what you don't want to do is call an election for a council that isn't going to exist a year later. It's a waste of time, it's a waste of resources, it's a waste of taxpayers' money. I think it's unfair on the councils who have to put that through, and it's unfair on the voters who then have to go to the ballot box again and don't really get to see much of a result from the vote that they cast. So no, it's not ideal. No one wants to cancel elections, but it's an unfortunate byproduct of this wider local government reorganisation, which I think in the long term is going to be really beneficial.
It's ideal for your boss, Sir Keir Starmer, who would get eviscerated if the public were to go to the polls under these circumstances. It would be game over. It's very politically convenient that these elections aren't happening, isn't it? And that's really registered by my audience, who are really angry.
Yeah, I
care
see
to
how
acknowledge that anger? Do you want to say sorry? Sorry seems to be the hardest word.
No, I want to explain why I don't think that's true. Look, the number of councils that are currently Labour run that are going to be asked if they want to delay elections is 18. The number of councils up for election in May is 160 something. It's certainly over 100. And so, look, assume Labour did fantastically well. Assume they got obliterated. Look at all of the outcomes. Are any of those outcomes really going to be changed by 16 councils? I don't think they are. So, yeah, look, nobody wants to delay elections. I agree with that. But if you look at it in a bigger picture, if we're going to get a reimagined local government that gives voters more power in what happens in their communities, I think it's worth it on balance.
And if you look at the policy platform of, for example, the Lib Dems, they've waged a diplomatic war against Donald Trump, the leader of the free world, of course, the president of the United States, which is our #1 economic and diplomatic and military ally. Sir Keir Starmer, to his credit, one of his wins as Prime Minister has been in cultivating and nurturing that relationship with the President. So I'd say well done to the PM for oiling the wheels with Washington, getting an excellent trade deal. Of course, we've come through the tariff war very successfully, thanks to Brexit, with 10% on goods as opposed to 20% in the EU. So those are big Labour wins. Meanwhile, the Greens are quite willing to ignore the verdict of the Supreme Court on biological sex and want open borders. Refugees are welcome, which is a national security and economic disaster. So these are policies and an approach of which Labour does not approve, right? Labour is not on board with open borders, with crazy wokery that says there's 100 genders, and it doesn't want to wage war against Donald Trump. So why don't you now, on this network, 7:44 on Talk Breakfast on a Sunday morning, disassociate yourself from the Greens and the Lib Dems and say, I don't agree with their policies, they'd be terrible in government, and there will be no deal. Are you willing to say that?
I mean, that's the easiest thing I can say all day. There's a reason I'm not part of the Green Party. There's a reason I'm not...
They're lunatics. You need to call them out for that.
Labour.
Because they want to go to bed with Keir Starmer. They're nutters.
I don't know that they do. We're talking about a hypothetical event after a hypothetical election in 4 or 5 years' time. So being able to say anything that might happen there, it's completely... If
the Greens won 6 seats and they hold the balance of power, they become the DUP for Keir Starmer. And what you need to do to reassure my audience is say, no, this is a reformed, moderate Labour Party. We would never do business with the Greens. And we don't think much of the Lib Dems either, because they hate Donald Trump.
Yeah, look, I can't see it happening, if I'm honest. I can't see Labour going into a dark back room and trying to make a deal with the Greens, or indeed the Lib Dems. It just doesn't seem like something that is reasonable. But again, we're talking so far in the future, it's so hard to predict what any of these parties will look like. But, you know, you talk about the Lib Dem approach to Donald Trump. They can only do that because they know they're not going to be in government. Ed Davey is never going to be flying to Washington for diplomatic talks with Trump, so they can say what they like. The Greens also, they can kind of say what they like because they are the reform of the left. Their job is populism. They've got to say things that sound appealing to their voter base that they know they'll never have to enact.
Are they dangerous?
Very, very different.
Are the Greens dangerous?
Are they dangerous? Well, look, I think if they got into power, they'd be incredibly dangerous because of some of the views they hold and just their general sense of the economy. They're not a serious political party. They are like Reform.
Salik's woken up.
Look, they're a pressure group, and they're a very good pressure group, much as Reform are. They say the right things to the right people, but put either of them in government and it will be a complete disaster. And that's why, you know, I'm still, despite everything, a member of the Labour Party, because I think they have the credibility and they just understand what the real world looks like. I mean, Wes Streeting talks about being pragmatic whilst being progressive, and I think that is where the heart of politics really lies, and that's certainly where I try to operate every day.
Listen, the clock's against us, Sebastian. How does 2026 pan out for Sir Keir Starmer? When we meet in a year's time, will he still be Prime Minister?
I really hope so, and it's for the reason I always give you, which is that we need somebody to carry out their agenda, because any kind of change is going to be long term. So I will be supporting Keir Starmer for as long as he is Prime Minister, because I think that is what we need in this country. And look, I really hope that things start to turn around. Morgan McSweeney reportedly this week talking about this is the year the fruits of everybody's labours have to be felt, and I would agree with him. You know, your listeners will be feeling impatient. They will want change, and I really hope that 2026 is the year that change starts to be felt.
Will Keir Starmer be Prime Minister in a year's time? I hope he will is not an answer to the question, and it's quite telling, Sebastian.
I hope and I think he will. Let me clarify.
Top man. Listen, we always love having you on the show. Thank you for your fantastic contributions all year, and I do hope, should your schedule allow, that you'll be available in the new year too, Sebastian, because it's all about opinions, and yours are of compelling interest to my audience. Sebastian Salik, their Labour councillor. The thing is, folks, what this show is, right? Diversity of opinion, and no one gets cancelled, not on my watch. Do Reform and the Tories need to merge to keep Labour out of power? More on this next.
Exactly, and so a little bit of gratitude actually wouldn't go amiss from the Indian subcontinent, considering we gave them English, a functioning governance structure, the legacy of common law, architecture, and the railways. And so it's actually not the fault of Britain, apparently, according to two Marxist economists from India, extracting something like 50 trillion from, I don't know, we just dug cash out of the dirt, apparently, in Mumbai. No, we gave you a lot of wealth, we gave you a functioning government.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Do you think the parties of the left will work together to keep Farage out of number 10? This is a voice note from Pete.
When Sebastian Salek says, oh, out of the 102 local elections going on, there's only about 18 that are postponed, it's not fair. It could be 18 important ones. I know. When it comes to the general election, can we then postpone the areas that are definitely going to vote Labour from voting? You know, because the rest of the country will be voting, wouldn't they? That's Salek, right? What planet is that man on?
Powerful stuff. And what about the idea of a Tory reform merger? Here is the mighty Vivian.
Good morning, Mark. It's Vivian from Oxfordshire here. The Tories and Farage should not merge until they absolutely need to after the election, if they needed to merge then to get a government. But the other thing I wanted to say was, do you remember in January, Starmer went to Ukraine to sign an agreement for 100 years to prop up Ukraine with whatever it takes? So goodness knows how much that is we've been committed to spend with them. But I think it all included drones and healthcare, defence things, various other things. It was a big agreement he signed. And he's just giving everything away. I mean, what on earth will be left of this country? By the time he's finished with it, God only knows. They're a disaster, absolute disaster. And I actually agree with that guy who said, and military junta is needed. I mean, it's a terrible thing to say, but it is. It just is. They must be taken out one way or another.
What a brilliant voice note. Vivian, thank you for that. I love your calls and I do love the voice notes as well. Keep those opinions coming. What do you think? Is it a price worth paying having the Tories on board for Nigel to become Prime Minister? If that's the deal, that this guy only gets into Downing Street with the support of Kemi Badenoch, is that a price worth paying? I really want to know your thoughts on that. 03444991000. Isabel owning it on the phones today. The brilliant Davis directing our TV output. If you want to watch the show, by the way, just head to Talk. YouTube search Talking Up We Pop. Let's talk now about Prince Andrew, part of the Epstein files. An image released of Andrew, of course, the artist formerly known as Prince, draped over several women at a Jeffrey Epstein venue. Meanwhile, it's been revealed in the papers today that he took Epstein's girlfriend, Ghislaine Maxwell, to Sandringham. Let's get reaction from one of my absolutely favourite journalists, the editor at large of the Mail on Sunday, Charlotte Griffiths. Good morning, Charlotte.
Morning.
The problem is, very well, great to see you again and Merry Christmas. The issue you got with Andrew is that he's been stripped of all his titles. He's going to leave the Royal Lodge. And the guy is already priced in as a bit of a wrong-un. So it doesn't feel like any new revelations move the dial. What say you?
I agree with that, because I think the only thing that would move the dial is yet another really sordid picture of Epstein doing something horrible. You know, there are these photos of him with girls with Lolita written, words from the book Lolita written across their body. They're really horrible, seedy images. Bill Clinton in a hot tub. But none of these so far have had Andrew in. So I don't think the dial will be moved unless Andrew is in one of them. And listen, I'm no defender of Prince Andrew. And I think the fact that Epstein and these girls and Maxwell were in Sandringham is just appalling and shows that he was just so stupid he didn't see he was being taken advantage of. And that these two people, Maxwell and Epstein, were just desperate to kind of go to Ascot or Sandringham or anywhere that they could score an invite as Prince Andrew's so-called +1. But what it doesn't show is anything actually that sordid going on. I mean, everyone is fully clothed. He just looked like a bit of an idiot. And as you say, it's all been priced in. And then yesterday he was pictured riding in Windsor, looking absolutely miserable. He'd obviously seen the papers, and it is embarrassing and it is unedifying, of course. And but it's just, we know this now, so it's kind of more of the same.
Most definitely. And Sarah Ferguson features in these Epstein files as well, images of her with Epstein associates. She was close to Epstein. He lent her money. Does she have a case to answer for Andrew's relationship with Epstein in the first place?
Yeah, I do think she played a role in the relationship. I thought the photos, again, of her were pretty harmless. It was her sitting on a sofa, nothing interesting going on, her posing with strangers on a street. But I do think, I just wonder whether she was encouraging this friendship with Jeffrey Epstein because she knew that they desperately needed money because she was the one spending all the money. She was the reason they were in so much debt in the first place. And I just think Sarah must have been turning a blind eye. You know, obviously, we know that Andrew wasn't really turning a blind eye because he was pictured with Virginia, with his arm around her. But I just wonder whether Fergie, I mean, you have to be really stupid to have not seen what was going on. And she just must have wanted the money more than anything. I mean, this guy was her husband, I mean, then her ex-husband. But again, it's just a very strange relationship to see him going to this place called, I think the place in Florida was called the House of Sin. And we know that his island, Jeffrey's Island, was called Paedophile Island. And the plane that he used to get there was called the Lolita Express. And yet she was there in the background going along with it all. So, yeah, I think she was encouraging it. And I think she was doing it for one reason only, and it's money.
I think you're absolutely right. Follow the money. The root of all evil, is it not, Charlotte? Donald Trump not particularly implicated so far in the Epstein files. At the moment, the president just looks like another public figure that was friendly with an influential, powerful, rich man. Mick Jagger, Bill Gates, Diana Ross, Michael Jackson, Woody Allen. Is this starting to shape up like a nothing burger?
Well, yes, so far. But of course, people are saying, hold on a minute, why isn't Trump in any of these pictures? Because we've only had a handful of them. I think we've only had 10% or something like that. So I'm fascinated to see what happens in the next 2 weeks. I think those that are complaining that there was only a partial release with 119 pages of one document redacted, you know, are right to complain, because it does feel like perhaps somebody, I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist, but perhaps somebody is saying, okay, let's release all these other influential figures first, so that when Trump does pop up in a picture or two, he does, as you say, look like one of these, you know, just yet another person, a rich and famous, interesting person that Jeffrey crossed paths with. I somehow doubt we're going to see a picture of Donald Trump in the bathtub or in the hot tub, like we see with the Bill Clinton photos. You know, his relationship with Epstein, you can tell from the photos, is much more intimate because he's much more in the inner sanctum. Whereas some of the other photos, you know, they're kind of out at public events or whatever. And I just don't think we're going to see a picture of Trump in a hot tub. Sadly, weirdly, I actually quite like to see that picture.
Well, definitely, because, I mean, you know, he's a very fine figure of a man, old Donald, isn't he? Let's be honest with you. We don't see him topless enough. Plenty of Putin, but not so much of Trump. Sunday Mirror, following in Grand's footsteps, Prince George's visit to Diana homeless shelter. William and Catherine want to raise their children differently, don't they?
Definitely. So they took, William took George to the Passage on the 16th. I think they're just about to go on their big family holiday. So it's interesting that he chose just beforehand, at the end of the school term, to really show George that actually not everyone gets to whiz off on holiday, not everyone gets to have Christmas at a palace, and there are homeless people out there. And he was doing things like serving Greggs to homeless people, which I find hilarious, because the idea of George ever crossing the path of a Greggs amuses me greatly. But the amazing thing that happened was they opened the visitors book, and in this visitors book you had Princess Diana signing it in 1993, William signing it in 1993, and then Prince George signing it this year. And it was a really poignant moment. And apparently George said, "Oh, wow," when he saw his granny's signature there. And I have to say, it's the kind of thing that will be winding up Prince Harry something rotten. But, you know, it's a good deed. And I don't think that was the motivation behind it. And important for George at the age of 12 to see that his immense life of privilege, you know, isn't to be taken for granted.
Most definitely. Charlotte, lovely to see you. Merry Christmas, and I look forward to catching up in the new year. Charlotte Griffiths is the editor-at-large at the Mail on Sunday. It's 8 o'clock. What's going on? Let's have a break. Folks, so we've got a very, very big Dolan's dispatch coming up. This government have just waged war on motorists. They don't want you on four wheels. They don't want you to enjoy the independence, the autonomy of your own vehicle. They want you on a bus. They want you on foot. They want you on a bicycle. Well, you can go whistle for that one. That is the topic of today's Dolan's dispatch. Looking forward to that. Also, the big headline story of the day. A new poll puts the Tories just 3 points behind Reform UK. Given the fact that parties of the left are flirting with the idea of coalescing around an anti-Farage ticket, do the Tories and Reform need to merge? All of that is next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
8:04. Well, a happy Sunday, one and all. The last Sunday before Christmas. I hope you're well. It's our last show of the year. I'm delighted to say that as of January, I shall be presenting the Weekend Breakfast Show every Friday, Saturday and Sunday. We've got the absolute legend that is Jeremy Kyle Monday through Thursday. And I'll be taking care of 6 till 10 a.m. every Friday, Saturday and Sunday. Cannot wait for that. And breaking this morning, a shock new poll sees the Tories closing the gap to just 3 points behind Reform UK. So, as the left-wing parties consider a rainbow coalition, Labour, the Lib Dems, the Greens and the SNP, is a pre-election deal or even a merger between Reform and the Conservatives now necessary to get Farage into number 10? What say you? 0344 499 1000. Is it time for the right to unite? Amanda says, Mark, Reform and the Tories certainly do need to merge, as it's in both their interests to do so, as long as Reform policies are not diluted. That is the million-dollar question. Meanwhile, as pressure grows on the BBC to cancel 2 of David Walliams' shows over the Christmas period, is the Little Britain star the victim of a woke witch hunt? Plus more bad headlines for Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, and a gun-toting illegal immigrant who called for death to all Jews is free to roam the streets. Welcome to Broken Britain. We've got the inside story. But my question at 6 minutes past 8 in the morning here on Talk Breakfast is a simple one. Is the support of the Conservative Party a price worth paying to get Farage into number 10? 0344 499 1000. I know that many of you don't want it. You consider the Tories to have betrayed the country with net zero zealotry, with wokery in our public institutions, which are an ever-expanding state, a COVID overreaction, and of course the open borders. We blame the Tories, and rightly so. But is the support of the Tories, is some kind of deal or a merger a price worth paying to get Farage into number 10? I don't know. I actually don't know. So you tell me. 0344 499 1000. Text the word talk in your message to 87222. Drop me a voice note, and as the saying goes, let's talk. I'll get to your calls very shortly, but we start, as always, at this time on Talk Breakfast with Dolan's Dispatch. Under plans published by the government, councils will be required to impose sweeping parking restrictions, limiting the number of spaces on new housing developments without any justification. The move aims to discourage car use in favour of greener alternatives, such as using public transport, walking or cycling. But critics quite rightly warn that the policy will squeeze drivers and lead to parking misery in a new move that targets motorists in the name of net zero. Now, the message of this policy is pretty clear, okay? They have new builds with less parking spaces when it's already a nightmare parking near where you live. And the message is a clear one from this government. They do not want you to own a car. And why would that be? Well, because a car represents independence, doesn't it? It represents self-determination. It represents freedom. An authoritarian government like this one, that introduces a surveillance society, that issues you with a digital ID that wasn't in the manifesto, a government that scraps jury trials, that scraps elections no less, clearly doesn't want the public to have any autonomy whatsoever. London has seen the ULEZ scheme, a war on poor motorists who have to scrap their perfectly good 11-year-old diesel car in order to tick the box of environmental regulations. They claim that ULEZ is about cleaner air. It's not, it's hot air. And they want to clean you out. These woke technocrats would rather that you walked or jumped on a bus or took the bike as they swan around in taxpayer-funded limousines. We've got a congestion charge in London, which has done nothing to control congestion. All it's done is filled the coffers of City Hall. It's the same with the endless speed cameras. Parking tickets handed out like confetti. Eye-watering road tax, the duty on fuel, the hated 20-mile-an-hour speed limits. None of this is to do with road safety. None of it is to do with the environment. It is a money-spinning pantomime, and they don't want you in a car. And this push to electric cars is another big fat lie. It's a con job on the British public. These cars may produce fewer emissions, but the production of them requires vast energy inputs, unlike your 11-year-old diesel, which has been built and already exists. And the idea that every car of the future will be electric simply doesn't stack up, given the scarcity of the minerals required for their production. Electric cars are causing the cost of insurance to spiral, because even the mildest prang will see these cars written off, whilst your 11-year-old old banger can always be put back together in the mechanic's workshop. The second-hand car market for electric vehicles is catastrophic, because after 5 years, the batteries are shot to pieces, no different to that old iPhone rattling around in your drawer at home. Your 11-year-old diesel can always be repaired. It'll go on forever. Electric cars are an expensive white elephant, the disposal of which, when they reach the end of their natural life, is environmentally catastrophic. How ironic that when you bought an electric car, you thought you were saving the planet. You won't even save money, as Rachel Reeves decides to make you pay per mile to cruise around in a Tesla or a Nissan Leaf. So the push away from regular petrol and diesel cars to electric is built on a fabrication. It's built on a lie. They know that everyone can't have an electric car. They know that the range is terrible. They know that there are no charging points. They know that the weight of these cars is destroying our roads and even affecting the structural integrity of car parks. They know that these cars get written off after a minor prang. They know that these cars are actually environmentally unfriendly. They know it's quite impossible for everyone to drive one. The grim dystopian future that these people have in store for us involves the state deciding how and when you heat your home, all controlled by one of those so-called smart meters. It involves the state filming you everywhere you go, recognizing your face, and with digital ID, potentially over time, linking your behavior and your carbon footprint to access to public services or even your own money. And this bleak new future does not involve driving a car. They don't want you in a car. It's not a move from petrol and diesel to electric. It is a move from petrol and diesel to the bus, to going by foot, to a bicycle. How ironic that this pro-growth chancellor should be so anti-car, given that there are 1 million jobs in the car industry, and given the fact that the production and maintenance of passenger vehicles is a huge part of our economic and industrial output. This government and many others like it around the world are not about economic output anymore. They're about control. This government is waging war on motorists, and they must not win. They want you and me, the great unwashed, the proletariat, the masses. They want us sat on public transport where we'll probably get mugged for our phone. They want us sat on overcrowded trains where you've got to sit next to some thug who's got his feet up on the seat opposite with blaring music coming out of his phone. They want us on the street where we'll likely get mugged. They want us wobbling around on 2 wheels. Well, I'm sorry. Last time I checked, this isn't communist China. So my message to the Prime Minister is clear. If you think we're going to go on electric cars and you're going to go by foot and you go on public transport, 3 words for you. On your bike. 03444991000, your reaction. Is a deal Between the Tories and Reform, a price worth paying to get Nigel Farage into number 10. Matthew's in Cheshire. Good morning, Matthew.
Good morning, Mark. First, I want to say a big, massive thank you. It's my first day off in 4 weeks. I'm a delivery driver, and your show's kept us going every weekend, your debate and everything, so thank you for that, mate. I really enjoy listening to you, and I'm glad that you're back on the weekend in the New Year's.
Matthew, that is incredibly kind of you, and I want to thank you so much for that, and may I salute you for your hard work over many weeks. And I've been, since I got back, I've been cheering for the alarm clock Brits, people that get up in the morning, put a shift in and put more in than they take out. You're clearly one of those people.
Yeah, and today's the first day I can be a dad for my kids because I've just been working. So
wait a minute, have you done the best part of a month back to back?
Yeah, I'm a delivery driver for a firm that everyone knows about. So I'm self-employed. I've been out every day delivering 300-400 parcels every day.
And that is exhausting. So no family life, it's just work.
Yeah, people have a go at the couriers and say that they're rubbish, but most of those couriers have been doing it for years. I started in COVID. We work hard and we try and look after our customers. So there's a lot of couriers out there who listen to talk, and we bust our guts now because it's the busiest time of year.
You do an incredible job, and I've got to say that whenever I take delivery, and I've been doing the Christmas presents and all of that, I try to thank the person delivering the parcel. Sometimes they ring the bell and they're halfway down the street once I get the door open, but I'm like, thank you. It is time to show a bit of respect and a bit of appreciation for couriers and delivery drivers, because it's critical infrastructure, isn't it?
Well, people buying parcels on the internet is the biggest thing going. And it's all because when COVID kicked in, all the pensioners who used to go to the shops suddenly realised they can buy on the internet, and that's what a lot of older people now are doing. They buy on the internet rather than going out. And that's why part of the high street is dead, because of COVID, they've been buying on the internet. It's easier, it's less hassle. You're not spending any money. You're not worrying about parking. You just click and go. And most courier drivers have their own rounds. I don't know about Amazon, but with the firm I work for, self-employed, we have our own rounds. We know our customers, so we know how to look after them.
Well, that's really good. And apart from not getting a day off in a month, what are the hardest aspects of the job, Matthew?
The weather. I need a double hip replacement. I've been doing this 6 years now, and 5 years ago I had an MRI and my hips were fine, and now I've got a double hip replacement next year because I do about 20 to 30,000 steps a day getting in and out of the van, and I'm 55 and I need a double hip. But it is what it is, and I've worked all my life since I was 13, been a soldier. It's wear and tear. As you get older, things don't repair, do they? They just get worse. So you just got to look at it and manage it.
No, they don't. And given how hard you work, and I salute you for your service to this country in the military as well, by the way, and you've been working since a youngster. What are your feelings about the future for this country, Matthew?
I think we're in the quagmire. If we have a snap election, I think the Reform will win it outright. If we go the full length with this Labour Party in 3-4 years' time, I think the country's going to be such a mess that there will be a Tory Reform government, because they'll have to be, because the Tories have got the experience of pulling us back out of the rubbish that the leave us in every time that they take over from.
Yeah.
So I think there'll be a bit of lack of trust that there's enough experience in Reform, which I think there'll be a coalition for the first term and then maybe a Reform second term, because I don't think anyone's going to vote Labour ever again.
And would you prefer, Matthew, you clearly, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it's quite clear that you want change. Do you feel that the only way we're going to get that is if those two parties of the right work together? Is it inevitable, do you think?
I do, yeah, because I think that, I think if the Tories don't work with Reform a little bit, they're dead in the water because of the lack of trust they've got, and the number of people, the pure Tories that are leaving to go to Reform, because Reform is now the Tory party 20, 30 years ago when Thatcher was in charge.
Yeah.
It's scary. I've always followed politics just as a general interest and been interested in politics, and I did vote Labour when Blair came in after Thatcher because I thought we needed a change. But when Corbyn came in and all this, I would never ever. I won't look at the Daily Mirror. I won't listen to Labour. I think that even though I've been in a trade union through work and stuff, I will never ever ever vote Labour. My nan said it in the 70s when we couldn't bury the dead in the 70s and we had strikes. My nan used to say, "Don't vote Labour." and it's coming back again.
And yet, Nigel Farage he appealed to you before the election. He said he's going to be the Prime Minister for working people. And what do you think about that?
Well, he goes down the pub. He has a fag. He talks to people. Working class, upper class. He's out for the country.
Oh,
people.
Nigel, yeah.
Yeah, you know, at the end of the day, they're going for the farmers and the country folk. They know what they're doing. The farmers know what they're doing. The country homes are leading to it. Don't need to go for them. Let them be, because if it wasn't for the people in the country, we wouldn't have a Great Britain. That's what feeds the country. That's what keeps us going. And the Labour just think they're all rich and they've all got this, that, and the other. They haven't. You know, a lot of them are very poor, and you know they go pheasant shooting. A lot of them live off of the pheasants and sell the pheasants and the sheepdogs that they train and for farmers and stuff like that. It's a whole different world, and they don't know anything about it. Just let them get on with it. Leave people alone. Yeah, but pay our taxes, have a good health service, sort our immigration out. Let's never mind putting £1 billion on misogyny to kids. Put £1 billion into our schools so our kids are educated to a good standard where they've got maths and English. They're going into careers. We've got no industry anymore. When I was at school, you had metalwork, woodwork. People who were going to be a bricklayer. Girls wanted to be nurses.
Yeah.
There's none of that now. There's none of that. It's all about Ofsted, getting your grades, getting the right stars. And kids leave school and they don't know what they want to do.
No, and they go off to university and do a media studies degree or something.
Yeah, and they get. I've had team leaders working with me crash down with debt from going to university, and it's not worth the paper it's written on. You know, I've got a 2-2. It's not worth anything. That I'd rather got you get an apprenticeship in doing engineering, because all you now is got £30,000 of debt for the rest of your life, and you're only going to work on an assembly line or in a factory for nothing.
So
and, that was Blair.
It was Blair, and it was a complete ideological thing to make everyone go to university. I believe in training, investing in the education of young people, but not via red brick universities doing history of art. It's a complete joke, isn't it, Matthew? Before I let you go, a couple of quick ones. First of all, when are you going to go in for the hip? Then are you going to do it next year?
No, well, I'm a veteran. I'm going through the Veterans Hub.
Oh yeah.
In Oswestry. So I've had the MRI, and now I've just got to have two cortisone injections in my hips, and when that wears off, they'll get me in. But when you go to that military hub, the Veterans Hub, you can see the difference from the NHS, because it's run by military staff. It's amazing. It's so efficient. It's bang on. There's no one standing around. There's no everyone coming in. It's like going private, but it's not. It's the NHS. So
it shows how it can be done in the public sector, right?
Yeah, it can be done. It's just getting the right people in the right places with the right attitude, bringing matrons back who know how to run a ward. Never mind all this, but going on the sick. Get into work. If you don't come into work, you don't get paid. I've not been off sick in years. I can't afford to.
Yeah, so, I know. And you get up early in the morning, and following the budget, your taxes are going to some people who don't go to work, and it's not right, is it? Well, you're going to be like the Bionic Man in the new year.
Oh yeah, I'll be like Steve Austin again.
Isn't it? Definitely, it'll be relived. It will be quite something. And then I'm just getting a lot of texts from the people regarding the importance of delivery drivers and people that bring packages. As you know, like I said, it's critical infrastructure. And this is from Kat Matthew, who says, "Morning, Mark. I'm an every driver, and I've worked a full month as well. And I've got my first day off too, so it's a day that I have to cram everything in." What are your plans for the day, Matthew? Your first day off in a month?
I'm going to go to Chester with the markets with my wife and my two girls, and we'll have a little bit of a family day, do a bit of final shopping. We've had a busy one because we've done the house over the Christmas period, so a new kitchen, so my wife wants loads of new things for the kitchen and the dining room. So yeah, I'm going to have a nice family day. Chester's beautiful. Hopefully the weather will hold off.
I hope so. Northwest, good luck with that. I tell you something, they got your girls have got a smashing dad, and please call me in the new year, Matthew, and let us know how you get on with the op as well. And thank you for drawing attention to the importance of our delivery folk.
Cheers, Mark. Bye.
Cheers, Matthew. There you go. Look at that. First day off in a month. That is the definition of an alarm clock Brit. What do you think about this? Oh, how about this from Russ? Good morning, Mark. Great call from Matthew in Cheshire. He is the people right there. So next up, is a deal between the Tories and Reform a price worth paying to get Farage into number 11? This is Talk Breakfast.
the Talk app. You can watch, catch up and listen to all your favourite shows and podcasts anytime, anywhere, all on the Talk app. Watching and listening to Talk just got easier. There's now only one place for the home of common sense. So head over to your App Store or Google Play and search Talk now.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
You're listening to Talk Breakfast. Would a Tory reform merger be a price worth paying to get Farage into number 11? Let me know your thoughts, 03444 999 1000. By the way, big reaction to today's Dolan's dispatch. Labour's war on motorists. This from an unnamed texter saying, Mark, everything you've said is exactly what I've been thinking about electric cars, etc. Thank you for that. Let me know if you disagree with the Dolan's dispatch. This show is all about opinions. Let's get yours on the radio and the telly. Let's do the same with Phil Dave and Rory Boyle, who are elite broadcasters and political commentators. Good morning, chaps.
Good morning. Good morning. And can I just say, I wholeheartedly agree with Dolan's dispatch. It's something I've been banging on about for a very long time. Electric cars, biggest con of the 21st century. Unbelievable con because of the amount of effort, energy and resource that goes into manufacturing them. What happens to every single petrol and diesel vehicle that's on the road now? They're going to ultimately be replaced. How are we going to manufacture those cars? Not with electricity, believe me.
Well, your 11-year-old diesel that you have got to get rid of to save the planet, right? It exists. So you've got to get rid of a car that's there in order for a new car to be produced with precious minerals
and that's what I'm saying. It's not
energy.
that new car is not going to be produced using electricity. It's going to use vast fossil fuels.
And it won't be charged either with electricity. Toyota were not keen at all on electric cars. And the chief of Toyota, which is the biggest car manufacturer in the world, said, well, it doesn't really make sense because you're charging the cars with fossil fuel, so it's not environmentally friendly. But it's an interesting...
Anyway, I digress, sorry.
But I've got a sort of slightly more conspiratorial view, which is that we're being sold a lie about the idea that it's a transfer to electric. I don't think it is, because they know that there aren't enough resources for everyone to have an electric car. There aren't enough charging points. There isn't enough road space. That this is basically...
It's a way to wipe cars off the road.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
It's hard to argue with that.
But we'll see. Listen, what do you think about electric cars, Rory?
Well, I was going to make the point that, you know, obviously we're being encouraged to take public transport more and more. I have a job, like many people in this country, where I don't work from home. I have to be in an office 5 days a week. And my whole thing is, if you want us to take public transport all the time, I actually don't have a problem with that, but let's fix some of the issues with these trains. I mean, train cancellations are still insane in this country. The prices as well. The price to just get a train, let's say up to Manchester to go and see your family, can be more expensive than going abroad. So these prices have to match what they want us to do in a realistic society where, frankly, everything is more expensive. Maybe we'll come on to talk about this more broadly in one of our other topics. For me, one of the worst parts, if not maybe the worst part about living in the UK at the moment, is the cost of living crisis, how expensive it is to live. And so if you want to encourage us to take more public transport in order to help the environment, well, frankly, that public transport needs to be up to scratch and match the prices it's costing.
But I hate to say it, I think that's another guise as well. When they sort of say they're encouraging people to take public transport, they know that public transport is so expensive for the masses, and yet they don't do anything about the prices. The only possible conclusion, the only logical conclusion, is they really want people to stay put. We sort of saw this during COVID times, this concept of 15-minute cities. Remember those cropping up and what have you? It's the only logical answer as to why they don't do anything. They're not stupid, these people. They have to know how expensive public transport is, and they also have to know how they are making it almost impossible to get around by car. Only conclusion, they don't want us to go anywhere.
Fair point. Phil, is a deal between the Conservatives and Reform a price worth paying for Reform supporters to get Farage into number 10?
As much as I understand the concept of this and the theory behind it, I would suggest that we saw what happened the last time there was a coalition in this country that was caused back in 2010. Now, I appreciate that was between Conservatives and the Liberal Democrats, and of course they're two vastly different parties, whereas you could argue that Reform and the Tories are more sort of politically minded to think the same way. However, I believe that if we were to go down that route of coalition just for the sake of getting Farage into number 10, then not a lot would change from what we see now. Because the problem we've got, and the reason why so many people appear to be turning to Reform, is based on the political elite, the existing political elite, for so many years have stuck a proverbial couple of fingers up to the British public and not done anything to help the public and to sort of make the lives of many, many Brits better. I can't help but feel that if we wound up with a coalition between Tories and Reform, that would just carry on, and then that would be pointless.
So therefore you're almost a kind of Reform Spartan, where you say it's Nigel or nothing?
I believe that it's worth trying. Look, I mean, I am prepared to keep a very open mind, truly I am, because I think that sort of there are various policies from all parties that make sense somewhere along the line. Not one party is absolute perfection. But I think that given what we've seen so far with the existing political class, that Reform seem to be the only ones doing something slightly different or trying to be a bit different. Now, look, they may just be a wolf in sheep's clothing, who knows? But from surface value, that's what I see.
What do you think? Do you think it's likely, I'll ask you about the left in a moment, Rory, but do you think that there's a chance that if Nigel Farage thinks that the mathematics of it, the parliamentary arithmetic, don't add up, that he'll need the Tory support and that a deal will be done?
I think what a lot of Phil just said made sense. I think we still have a long way to go. I think we might be a bit quick to jump the gun here and say there's got to be a coalition immediately because of some of these polling numbers that we're seeing. We still have a long time, in theory, until the next general election. Obviously, none of us in this room know what the future holds, but we do know that at the moment, it seems like Labour aren't really going anywhere for the time being. And I think until there is another general election, we can't quite predict what's going to come along. I sometimes feel the coalitions seem a bit desperate, especially at this early stage. And also, you know, what would that even look like? We know for a fact Nigel wants to be the leader. He wants to be sat in that PM seat. I think Kemi is the exact same. But I think they are quite different characters. And, you know, let's say, for example, tomorrow they do form this coalition. Is that basically going to be diet reform? Is it going to be Conservatives plus? Like, what would that actually be? I think it's way too soon to be thinking about anything like that.
Well, yes, and if there's one thing we know about Nigel Farage, Phil, he's a man of considerable political gifts, but he ain't no team player, is he? So he's not going to be in some sort of happy woke partnership with Kemi Badenoch, some sort of, you know, Green Party fudge of two leaders or something like that.
Well, let's look at it this way. If you look at someone like Ben Habib or Rupert Lowe, who Nigel Farage has rather infamously fallen out with, both of them, if you believe that he has the capacity to graciously day in, day out work alongside someone like Kemi Badenoch, I think people are going to be sorely disappointed, because I don't see how it's possible. Because if you've got two individuals, okay, fair enough, Ben Habib wasn't a politician, but he certainly was a pretty big part of reform until Nigel Farage came back into the fold. And if he is able to fall out with people like that, who have almost identical politics to him, the only thing he didn't really like about them is that they were probably bigger characters and more of a threat to him, potentially, I'm just guessing, then I don't think it's even on the cards that he would jump into proverbial bed with the Tories. I don't see how.
Well, at 8:34, another question to reflect on. If Keir Starmer fears a Reform victory at the next election, will he put together a rainbow coalition featuring Labour, the SNP, the Lib Dems and the Greens? That's next.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Brian in York, who's messaged the show. Good morning, Mark. We, indeed the country, cannot withstand another left-wing parliament. It's imperative that we have a right-wing government of sense ASAP, and if it means some sort of Tory reform partnership, then it has to happen. Nigel and the Tories need to put their differences aside and do what's right for the country. Cheers, mate. Great show. Well, Brian, cheers to you. Thank you so much for listening to us. Mike says Reform UK aligning with the Conservatives risks being painted as a Conservative Party 2.0, which would alienate voters specifically drawn to Reform as a protest against the previous Conservative government's record. For the Conservatives, cozying up to Reform could cost them more centrist votes that defected to parties like the Liberal Democrats. And Lee says, why do we always have a Labour supporting Speaker of the House, Mark? Well, it's supposed to take it in turns, isn't it? John Bercow, would you believe, was a former Conservative MP. He just sounded like a Labour MP. And, of course, he hated Brexit as well. Sean has messaged a show with a very short one. Good morning, Mark. Phil Dave is a legend. I think Sean's been on the cooking sherry that was today.
I was going to say.
Oh, no, that's
I've been called a leg end. I don't know about a legend, but thank you.
It's my understanding that it's your Uncle Sean. OK.
Oh, awkward.
Rory Boyle. We're talking about the right uniting. What about the left uniting to keep Farage out of number 11, some kind of rainbow coalition? SNP, Greens, Labour, Lib Dems. I understand what you're saying, it's early days, but fast forward to like the eve of the election. If it looks like Reform are going to win, do the left work together to stop that happening?
They could do. I'm very surprised to see the Greens polling just behind Labour at the moment. I think that's something I couldn't have predicted, let's say, 6 months ago. So if we are flashing forward to the next general election and thinking about a coalition, I'll be honest and say, I'm not mad on coalitions, but I really dislike Nigel Farage, and I would love to see him stopped from getting in that seat. I think it's very likely he could when we flash forward to the future, and I think there are many people on the left who don't like him either, who'd feel very strongly about uniting to stop that from happening. Whether that's the right decision or not is another question, but I think there is so much dislike and vitriol against Farage from many people in those parties that it could happen.
I mean, that's the one thing, isn't it? That's the one thing they all agree on. They don't like Nigel Farage.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Can you maybe help those understand who maybe don't see that side of Farage, what it is about him that you don't like specifically?
I do genuinely believe that Nigel Farage is homophobic. I do genuinely believe that from things he said. I mean, he's been vehemently against gay marriage. He's held that position for many, many years, not changed on that position. I believe he did say that it was quote-unquote not a settled issue, even though same-sex marriage is legal in this country. And that really worries me. I mean, I don't know, all these clips and all these quote-unquote allegations of racism to his old students. Now, I will say, I felt some of that coming back up again was slightly scraping the barrel, because we do already know that news is, well, if it's true, it's awful, but that news was already out there. So it's not like it's any breaking news that Nigel Farage has been accused of racism. But, you know, he vehemently denies a lot of what he's been accused of and tries to downplay it. But the homophobia, I don't think he can deny.
OK, so just to pick up on this slightly then, if I may, just for when you were talking about the idea of same-sex marriage. You see, I am a traditionalist through and through. And I have a major problem with the way that our generation believes that we're the ones who can rip up the rule books and start again and change everything. So the concept as well of gender ideology, for example. So everyone has known for many hundreds of years what makes a man and what makes a woman. And yet for some reason, this generation that wants to change all of that and blur the lines. I would argue that traditionally marriage has always been between a man and a woman, but I'm not in the least bit homophobic. So I don't understand sort of why, if there is this idea that he doesn't like same-sex marriage, does that automatically make him homophobic?
Yes, I believe it does. I believe, I'm going to park the gender issue for a second, because I do believe that's separate. Even though I support trans people, I don't think it's the same as talking about same-sex marriage.
I'm just using it as an
example. Yeah, that's fine. That's absolutely fine. I'm just saying, parking that for 1 second and going back to your question, yes, I do believe if you see marriage as a union between a man and a woman, and you don't see two people of the same sex wanting to share that union as equal or allowing them those rights, I do believe that's homophobic.
But that might be a personal view rather than a policy move. I mean, the bottom line is, if Farage becomes Prime Minister, he ain't scrapping gay marriage, is he?
Well, I think the fact that he said it's not a settled issue is quite worrying.
And when did he say it, though, as well? Because I think that, Farage recently is on the record as saying, I don't care how you identify and I don't care who you sleep with.
Well, I believe that the Reform Party are not going to be helpful at all towards trans people. I think that's a fact. So I don't believe the whole I don't care how you identify lark. I think that's made up.
But what about the gay side of it? I mean, he's not going to scrap gay marriage, is he?
Well, I would say when you look at what's happening in the US, when you look at women's rights being rolled back, when you look at, there was a lot of talk of gay marriage potentially being rolled back in the US, and Farage seems to follow a lot of Trump's side of politics. I think it's very worrying what he would want to do. I mean, even you may say that, yes, he's not going to change policy, but I personally don't want a prime minister who I do believe, yeah, maybe if they're not changing policy, that's a good thing. But I don't want a prime minister who is, in my view, actively homophobic. There's even a video of him in 2015, of using a word that I'm not going to say on air because it's early morning, but using a pejorative against gay people in a speech as a joke. I don't find that funny. I don't think it's funny. And frankly, I don't want a PM who has those views, even if he's not going to, allow certain policies that oppress gay people. I just don't want to fraternise with someone who's using jokes like that. Sorry, don't want to do it.
Are there any leading figures in Reform UK who are gay?
Oh, there's a question. I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if there were, but I
don't want to speculate, because there are one or two, figures that maybe, but I don't want to
Well, I was going to say, I don't think that we can sort of sit here and start sort of listing the sexual preferences of members of the Reform Party.
Let's not do that.
But at the same time,
no, but it would be telling, wouldn't it? It would be telling. I mean, because it's hard to swallow that Nigel Farage is Islamophobic, given the fact that his former chairman.
Well, I was going to say, I'm quietly confident that his current chairman is quite openly LGBT, isn't he?
Oh, well, that's what I wanted, because I didn't know about David, so I didn't want to speak out of school.
He is quite quite openly.
I thought David Ball could have been married with 3 kids. Do you know what I mean?
Well, he could be.
So there you go. So you've got the chairman of the party is a publicly out homosexual man.
Yeah.
Is that reassuring?
Nope. Because I think throughout history we have seen many gay politicians who've not done right by the gay community. So no, it's not reassuring at all.
Can I take you up on Trump, by the way, rowing back on women's rights? I would argue he's emboldened women's rights with executive orders on arriving in the White House for a second term, keeping a biological male out of women's changing rooms and out of women's sports, and supporting the Supreme Court's verdict in this country that there are just 2 biological sexes. Trump's been amazing for women.
I would argue that I was talking about Roe versus Wade there. I'd also argue that, yes, there are 2 biological sexes, but gender is a social construct, and those are 2 separate issues.
Yeah, fair enough. OK, well, look, 8:44, it is Talk Breakfast, and I want your thoughts on this idea of a Reform Tory coalition. Is it a price worth paying, an unpalatable price worth paying, to get Nigel Farage into number 10? We'll do more on that next.
the Talk app. You can watch, catch up and listen to all your favourite shows and podcasts anytime, anywhere, all on the Talk app. Watching and listening to Talk just got easier. There's now only one place for the home of common sense. So head over to your App Store or Google Play and search Talk now.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Amid all this furore about the idea of a Tory reform coalition, it's easy to forget that we've got a Labour government that's cancelling elections. Let's get reaction from Chris in Epsom. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning, Mark.
Happy Christmas to you. Today's show is dedicated to the viewers and listeners of this show. It's my last show of the year. I'm so grateful that you've all had me back here at Talk. I'm having a whale of a time. And thank you for your wise common sense over the last 12 months, Chris.
Yes, we've spoken a few times. I wish you and all the team at Talk a very, very Merry Christmas.
Thank you, Chris.
Now, listening to you this morning, Sebastian always winds me up. He's such a lefty. He's such a... And what makes me really annoyed is he speaks so well and he's handsome, and I just don't like his politics. But with that normal wind-up this morning, he did something that he doesn't normally do. He told barefaced lies. He completely conflated the truth. When he talked about when we talked about the cancellations of the local elections again in May, I'm one of those people. I'm in Surrey, so they're trying to put Surrey and Sussex together. Are you talking about devolution, letting local people have their say? No, they're not. They're talking about putting it into merging everything into one big pile so that they can control the one position rather than have local councils where local people can go in and have their say. It was a complete it was a complete lie of what's happening.
A complete misrepresentation and a complete lie, and you've been disenfranchised, Chris, which is very much the flavour of this authoritarian administration.
It is, and that misrepresentation was what I was trying to find. I couldn't find the word, and I said lie, so I'll take that back and put it in as misrepresentation. And that really annoyed me. And what annoys me at the moment also is this talk about Tory and Reform forming some sort of alliance, allegiance, merger, whatever you want to call it. It's too early in the day. I can tell you because I've spoken. I went to the Reform conference and I spoke to the leading members of Reform, And that is not on the agenda, not at all. Picking some really good people that were true Conservatives from the hand-wringing, knicker-wetting Liberals that called themselves Conservatives and got us where we are with our open borders and net zero and Boris being the bloody worst of them, taking the best from there and taking them across to reform, yes, absolutely agree, because as much as we need business people, all right, that have run companies and can look at things, we also need people that know what happens when you have your hands on the power, on the levers of power, and you pull them and nothing happens because of the blob, because that's the mountain that they've got to climb. And I do think that the country, as it goes along, there'll be these ebbs and flows towards left and right and what have you. But let's look at it. Right, we've got Starmer, who's a committed Marxist, Trotsky maniac.
Just to interrupt you there, Chris, you're absolutely entitled to your view. The Prime Minister would, of course, reject that and describe himself as a moderate, left-leaning Prime Minister, but you're entitled to your view. Crack on.
All right, well, his actions speak louder than his words. All right, and you are absolutely right on what you said about control and electric cars and the green energy policy and all the rest of it. And I'd go further. I'd ask you to look at Chris English's interview about the malware that America's found in its critical infrastructure in telecommunications, water and power. Malware from the Chinese government that sat there so they can flip a switch. He then expanded it to Chinese cars and then expanded it to further electric cars that are using Chinese computer equipment within their vehicles that they can flip a switch at any time because all these new cars are connected by 5G. So it's really worrying, the world that we seem to be charging into. And I think as we go forward, we don't need a man that said that he could hypnotise women to have bigger breasts, or a man that spent his entire election campaign jumping on and off of waterboards and windsurfers and running around on a hobby horse whilst completely ignoring the fact that he was in charge of the post office while the scandal of the postmasters and postmistresses, which still hasn't been sorted, continues.
Chris, you called it 100% right. Your eyes are open, you are awake, and your common sense is so valuable, and you've got to promise me that you're going to call the show in the new year when we return for every Friday, Saturday and Sunday Talk Breakfast. Chris in Epsom there, who speaks for so many people, Rory Boyle, who's very concerned about these cancelled elections.
Yeah, Chris, I didn't think we'd get knicker wetting at this time of the morning, but he certainly had a lot of gusto and energy, so I appreciate that. I don't like the cancelled local elections. I think local elections are really important. I loved, as soon as I got politically active, you know, when I was about 18, getting really involved in local elections. It's where a lot of us get into politics and really feel that we can see a change in our own community, because let's be honest, sometimes, you know, the sort of showbiz gloss of Westminster can be harder to relate to. So I do take his point there. And I also like that Chris did compliment Sebastian's looks and speaking. It's rare that we get a caller on here who actually compliments someone on the left. So a little bit of balance there.
I mean, Sebastian Salek is definitely a fine figure of a man. I will tell you that. He'd be a very handsome Prime Minister. He'd have all the wrong policies, Phil, but, you know, who cares?
Well, what can I say? I suppose in this shallow world in which we live in, it's looks that are everything. Hence the reason I'm not on air more often.
No. I will explain to you that it's a very cynical booking getting you, because you're the eye candy for the show. You're great.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you're great for my numbers, I can't lie.
Right.
Yeah.
Excellent.
I'm cynically deploying you because of all of those ladies out there that are watching.
Well, I can only say if I'm eye candy, then I really am so sorry how far you've fallen, but I'm very grateful all the same for the very fine compliment.
Yes,
in terms of local elections being cancelled, I think it's very simple. I believe that this demonstrates that Labour are terrified by what they have seen in the polls, absolutely terrified of it, and they simply don't want to run the risk of their how can I put this delicately, regime being scuppered in any way, shape or form, because obviously if they have a lot of Labour councillors all across the country at the moment, then it's going to be much easier for them to implement whatever net zero nonsense and stuff like that they want to get through the line, or get over the line, I should say. So if they suddenly find themselves working with a load of Reform councillors or any other party, then of course that's going to make it a lot harder for them. I believe that this is going to be very detrimental to them in the long term. I believe they need to look at the bigger picture and say to themselves, look, isn't it better to get the upset out the way now whilst we're making all the unpopular decisions early on in the government, in the tenure, and then towards the end when they're ramping up to the 2029 elections, that's when they start sort of doing all of the people pleasing. Because actually, in the grand scheme of things, does it really matter if councillors are not of the same political party? In the past, we've actually seen historically, more often than not, they're not the same political party.
Big Phil, Dave, quickly, briefly, if you can, because I want to get to David Walliams as you've been thrown under the bus, but just a final thought, because I think that if I'd been talking to my audience maybe a month ago and said, what about a Reform Tory deal, a merger? You know, it would be just 100% blanket no. Getting a lot of calls and messages saying, look, I'm desperate for Farage to become Prime Minister, but actually the expertise of some Tories, of experience of government, credibility, and also just the availability of candidates mean that that idea is becoming more palatable to hardcore Reform supporters now. Do you sense a sort of shift in the mood music there?
I think people are unnecessarily worried at this stage. It's far too early, as Rory said earlier on. The general election is not until about 2028, 2029, and that's assuming that the country doesn't go bankrupt before then, in which case it might be a bit earlier. OK, well, listen, you promised to keep it brief, and I appreciate that. Rory, let me ask you about David Walliams, because there's now pressure on the BBC to pull two Christmas shows that Walliams features in, one in which he wrote the script, basically he's got a little TV movie which is the basis of one of his books, and an appearance as well. This guy's been found guilty of and not even accused of any crimes. Is he subject to trial by media? Is this a kind of witch hunt?
He probably has been subject to trial by media. It's something we see time and time again with celebrities accused of misconduct. However, I will say, when I saw the headlines about David Walliams, my first thought was, he'll be back. It's actually very difficult to fully cancel somebody unless they have been convicted of crimes and are put in prison. Other than that, pretty much every celebrity who gets cancelled is on the same level of fame or a higher level of fame than David Walliams, who I'd argue is a household name in the UK. They all end up coming back. Schofield could come back. There's plenty of people who've been accused of worse who've come back. So, frankly, I'm not that worried about it. I'm not going to lose any sleep over it.
I suspect Michael Barrymore would argue differently, but yes, if you say so.
And of course, he's lost his publisher, HarperCollins. So I'm not sure he'll get another publisher as a children's author, will he?
As a children's author, maybe not, but there's certainly people out there who'll want to hear his side of the story and would read a book by him detailing that.
Oh, that's true. And has he been treated unfairly?
I believe that no one should be punished until they're actually found guilty of something, personally. But then we don't know the full story, so who knows?
Well, an unusually balanced response from Phil Dave there. He's normally a hardcore extremist.
Absolutely nothing to do with the fact that he was dropped by HarperCollins, who happened to be in this building. So.
There you go. Listen, thank you to Rory and Phil for a great job. Edwina Curry's next on a possible Reform coalition.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
.903. Just 4 sleeps till Christmas. How are your preparations going? Top of the morning, this is Talk Breakfast. It is 9:03. I'm Mark Dolan with you until 10 o'clock. And I'm delighted to say that we can get in the habit of spending time together because as of January, I'll be hosting Talk Breakfast every single Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 6 till 10 a.m. And I look forward to having your company. I couldn't do it without you. Big opinions, big guests, and Dolan's Dispatch every Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 6 till 10. The brilliant, the legendary Jeremy Kyle, Monday through Thursday. Keep it Talk. Well, breaking this morning, a shock new poll sees the Tories closing the gap to just 3 points behind Reform UK. So is a pre-election deal or even a merger between the Tories and Reform a price worth paying to get Farage into number 10? As pressure grows on the BBC to cancel 2 of David Walliams' shows over the Christmas period, is the Little Britain star the victim of a woke witch hunt? Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, photographed draped over several women and reportedly taking disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein's girlfriend Ghislaine Maxwell to a royal property, Sandringham no less. Should the King take further measures to deal with his scandal hit younger brother? How do you solve a problem like Andrew? Well, what do you think about this? Many Reform supporters would be horrified at the idea of going to bed with the Tories, but if the left put together their own coalition comprised of Labour, the Lib Dems, the Greens and the SNP, is the only answer a Reform UK versus Conservative dream ticket? Is that the only way to get Farage into number 10? My phone number is 0344 499 1000. Text the word talk in your message to 87222. Send me a voice note and, as the saying goes, let's talk. And at 5 minutes past 9, let's do that in the company of a politics legend, former government minister and best-selling author and broadcaster Edwina Currie. Good morning, Edwina, and Merry Christmas.
Good morning, Mark. Merry Christmas to you too. And I'm delighted to hear that we will be hearing from you every weekend on Talk from here onwards.
You're so kind, and the cheque is in the post. Now, Edwina, we need to talk about this. You are an incredibly loyal Conservative supporter, and you're also a towering figure within the party, having served in government for many years. Edwina, what do you make of this idea that perhaps, if the writing is on the wall at the next election, that the only way that we can have a Conservative government of any flavour is for the Tories to support Nigel Farage?
Well, it's 3.5 years to the next election. And that means that almost anything could happen. Almost anything could happen. It's about at the point at which Margaret Thatcher became leader of the Tories back in 75, and everyone thought that she didn't have a chance. That, well, she was interesting, but she didn't have a chance. And she went on to actually win the next election and the 2 after that, and we won the 1 after that without her as well. So you never know what's going to happen. What's interesting about this, I think, is that Kemi is closing the gap on reform. And I think what that tells you is something really interesting, Mark, which I know that you as a veteran will also appreciate, that there's a huge difference between the kind of politicking, the playing games, in other words, of people who are in opposition and actually running the country. And what people start to think about, what voters start to think about, particularly as we get closer to an election, is whether someone's going to be any good at running the country. And I did actually take a look at the poll that this particular piece is being based on. It was very, very funny because the respondents were asked all sorts of questions that were Christmas related. And Nigel Farage was regarded as the one most likely to hide in a pub until Christmas lunch is ready, most likely to fall asleep in front of the TV after lunch, the one most likely to burn the lunch, the one most likely to get into an argument over lunch, and the one most likely to do something embarrassing at the office party. In other words, I think a lot of the voters have got him sussed out. They realise that he's a cheeky chappy and a bit of a showman, but that actually when it came to running the country, somebody like Kemi would be much, much better. So let me make a couple of predictions, if I may. One is that Keir Starmer will not be the Prime Minister after the next election. In fact, the way things are going, Keir Starmer ain't going to be the Prime Minister before the next election either. The second is that until there is a very clear leader, we are in the possible presence of a hung parliament. The hung parliaments are not nice. They're not funny. They always involve horrible compromises. They always involve people that you would much rather not have at the seat of power, people you voted against and have actually effectively lost the election. So I think we need to work forward and make sure that Kemi and her wit and her intelligence and her style continue to be impressive, and for the public to recognise that. And let me also guess that Labour will carry on making a mess of things, which means that they will not be in charge after the next election. How's that?
Well, that'll do nicely. Several straight answers to a single straight question. Why has Kemi Badenoch improved in her performance, do you think? What's happened?
I think she stopped gabbling. I think she has learned that one of the clear things in all the political world that you need to be able to do is express your viewpoint with energy and drive, simply and in a memorable way. And if you can do it with a bit of humour, if you can poke fun at your opponents, if you can get voters and viewers laughing at your opponents, then your streak's ahead. You know, we have lacked humour such a lot in recent politics. It's been such a miserable dirge most of the time. And Kemi has learned, particularly on Prime Minister's Questions, which is her weekly outing, as it were, she has learned to make fun of the opposition, she's the opposition. She's learned to make fun of the government and to poke at their weaknesses, their evident weaknesses. And Starmer has no answer to that. Starmer just flounders. He has no sense of humour. He has no ideology. Yeah. And as a result, he can't really respond. I think that's what's one of the things that's made a difference.
Well, she's not gabbling. I completely agree with you. I think she's channeling Margaret Thatcher. Dare I say it, Edwina? I think she's channeling your good self as well, because the reason why you made headlines and why you were a very dynamic and effective government minister is you called a spade a spade. You weren't afraid to ruffle feathers. You weren't afraid to, you know, challenge groupthink, and that's why you achieved so much in, for example, the health department. The other thing that she's done, though, is she has shifted right, hasn't she? Ditching the net zero target, saying that not all cultures are equal, because they are not, because if there's a culture that believes in first cousin marriage or female genital mutilation, well, that's definitely a lesser culture than our own. And she's planning huge cuts, if she gets into power, to the welfare budget. So she's shifted right, hasn't she?
Well, some of this is absolutely necessary. And there's an element there of, shall we say it quite clearly, Mark, calling a spade a spade. And Kemi has figured out how to do this. And with her own background, she's able to do it without anyone accusing her of being racist. I mean, for example, this week, and it's painful, but I agree with her, she is saying, look, you know, all the boys in this country do not need teaching about misogyny. But the newly arrived young men, they do need teaching about misogyny. And that, you know, apart from just giving them £9 a week and a nice bed in a hotel, that's actually what we should be doing. And she's absolutely right on that. And she has gone further, as you rightly say, on, for example, if you want to have fewer people on welfare, if you want to have more people in work, if you want to have less unemployment, then what you have to do is change the balance between working for a living and keeping most of what you earn and sitting at home watching telly with your feet up, eating sweets, getting obese, and doing it all on benefits. And of course, we all know that lots of people on benefits really need them, but I think there's a growing awareness lots of people on benefits will be much better off in a job, and that would be good for their mental and physical health as well. And she's saying, look, you've got to do this. I think Keir Starmer understood it to begin with, Mark, because he did actually propose that there should be some big changes in the benefits bill. And then his own backbenchers said, over our dead body, so he backed off. It would have been really clever for Kemi to have said, we'll vote with you, we'll support you. You can't do this without us, but that hasn't happened. So the country is going to have to suffer from this imbalance between those who work and those who don't work for another 2 or 3 years yet.
Kemi Badenoch has talked a lot of sense recently. Why didn't she think those things a year and a half ago when she was in government?
Well, at that time, you know, being in government is so much harder than playing games on politics. It really is. Being in government means making horrible choices in very difficult circumstances. Rishi Sunak, the Prime Minister, was really trying to do that. And he was closing the gap, for example, on public spending and taxation. And he had already taken some decisions that would make a difference in that respect. But it is much harder to recover from COVID and from the huge shock of the war in Ukraine than I think most people have given him credit for. You know, when the histories are written, we will see Rishi as having been a really good man in extremely difficult circumstances. And it's taken a while for Kemi to acknowledge some of the mistakes and to acknowledge the difficulties, and then to focus. What is that term? Laser focusing. I don't know what it means, but laser focus on the blob that is the Prime Minister and his useless bunch of idiots on the front bench, and to point out where they're going wrong and where they could go right. They're not going to go right. They're not going to take her advice. We're going to have to wait for a new government to do that.
Edwina, what about these cancelled local elections? Are they justified?
You know, the only people that care about local elections and elections being cancelled are politicians. The electorate just want us all to get on with running the country properly. And at the same time, if you bear in mind that in some cases these are new local elections, new regional mayors, all that kind of stuff, especially in areas with a lot of deprivation that need inward investment. If she had said at the same time, if the Labour government had said at the same time, you know, we're going to cancel the local elections, we're going to put the money into, for example, a new tram service in Leeds, then they might actually have a future. But Rachel Reeves is one of the Leeds MPs, and I think the fact that that sort of investment, that sort of good decision-making has also been put on hold. That tends to guarantee that Rachel Reeves won't be an MP after the next election.
Yikes. She also won't get a pint in her local, Edwina. Front page of the Mail on Sunday this morning. You're barred, Rachel. Furious landlord bans the Chancellor from her local pub over tax hikes crippling the hospitality industry. We've also seen Jeremy Clarkson ban all Labour MPs apart from one from his pub in Oxfordshire because of the government's inheritance tax rate on farmers. I support Clarkson and I support this landlord in pushing back on two egregiously destructive policies that we've had from this government. But I'm just worried about setting the precedent of barring MPs from a hospitality establishment, because it could just as easily be a Conservative government or a reform-led government that are also stopped from getting a pint in their local. Are we going down a slippery slope with this one?
Oh, I don't believe in fairness, you know, not when it comes to this sort of thing. We've got pubs up here, you know, I'm in the north of England. We've got more pubs than that up here in the northwest who have taken that view, basically saying, look, you know, we appeared in a video with you, our local MP, our local Labour MP, before the election to give you some support, and look what you're doing. It's not just, there's a whole host of things that are busy destroying the hospitality industry and the high street, all of which Rachel Reeves could have done something about. For example, there was business rates relief that was given during COVID by Rishi Sunak. And this was going to come to an end But she could have extended it or at least moderated it, and she didn't. She just let that whole thing slap on. And at the same time, we're getting rates revaluations because of this mansion tax stuff left, right and centre, which means that many businesses are going to be paying more than they would have done. And add to that the increase in the minimum wage, which means, you know, pubs are going to have to pay people an awful lot more. And add to that the increase in the national insurance that employers are having to pay. So they're getting, I think it's called a triple whammy. They're getting hit from all sides. And at the same time, people don't have that much money in their pocket, so they can't support a big increase in beer and pub prices. What do? You go to the supermarket, you get special offer, and you stay home, you put your feet up, and you watch talkTV. That's what you do.
Well, that's a great thing to do. But MPs, though, are still also private individuals. And of course, you were an MP, a high-profile one for many years, Edwina. What happens if there's a Conservative government and people say to Kemi Badenoch, you know, the hypothetical Prime Minister, you know, you're not allowed in our shop or in our restaurant, you're not having a pint because you're deporting foreign criminals and we're against that policy? I mean, do you really want to go there?
I'm not sure there are too many pubs in this country that would be saying, oh, Kemi, we're against you because you're deporting foreign criminals. That doesn't seem to make sense to me. And I bet it doesn't make sense to you either.
That's a good point. As the question came out of my mouth, I thought Edwina's going to do a number on me here. I've absolutely crashed and burned.
I can't see that that actually happening. What I hope is underway, and that we won't see for a while, is some serious work being done on how exactly to cut the benefits bill. I mean, the obvious thing to do, and if you win a big enough majority, as Keir Starmer did, you can do this within the first 100 days or so. You have to come in and say, look, all benefits have to be cut by 10%. All of them. We have to get rid of the triple lock. I benefit from it, and I say it, and most pensioners recognise this. You have to get rid of that. The one that has everything hiking up, whatever happens. You have to get all the civil servants back to work, all the Department of Work and Pensions people back to work, and say there are no assessments without face-to-face. Not over Zoom, not over a phone call. You have to be in the office. You have to attend, and I will see whether... Well, we'll have a look and see if that's a genuine need for a wheelchair, for example. And maybe it is. And if it is, we'll look after you. So much of this, we know, everybody knows, so much of what is being claimed as a sham and has to stop. And it needs a strong government. What Kemi needs to work at is getting that done immediately, not just winning an election on it, but doing it and having the mandate to get on and to govern well.
Always a huge treat to have you on the show, Edwina. Have an excellent Christmas, and I look forward to catching up in the new year. My thanks to former government minister and best-selling author and radio host, the one and only Edwina Currie. Your reaction to what Edwina had to say, 0344 499 1000. What do you think about a Tory reform pact? Is it a price worth paying to get a true Conservative government in this country? This is Talk.
The Talk app. You can watch, catch up and listen to all your favourite shows and podcasts anytime, anywhere, all on the Talk app. Watching and listening to talk just got easier. There's now only one place for the home of common sense. So head over to your App Store or Google Play and search Talk now.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, more bad headlines for Andrew Mountbatten Windsor as the Epstein files are open and shared with the world. A photograph of Andrew draped over several women at a Jeffrey Epstein-hosted event, and allegations that Andrew welcomed Ghislaine Maxwell, the disgraced ex-paedophile's girlfriend, to Sandringham. Let's get reaction now from Talk's royal correspondent, Rupert Bell. Good morning, Rupert.
Good morning, Mark. Seems to be going from bad to worse for Andrew. The Sandringham events of, I think it was maybe the late 90s or 2000, another example of just what a difficult situation he's in, but it's all by his own creation, it would seem. So these Epstein files are continuing to haunt him.
Yes. Is Andrew's poor judgment in relation to Epstein now priced in? Can this story do any further damage?
No, I think he's at the lowest ebb possible, but it's just further confirmation that, you know, it sounds pretty, well, they had this party at Sandringham, which he said he'd invited Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell to a shooting party at Sandringham, but it appears from these photographs and then other books are suggesting that quite a lot went on, and obviously this photograph may be a reflection of the kind of activities that may or may not have been going on at Sandringham while hosting this party, which Andrew was hosting then with Epstein and maybe Ghislaine Maxwell. So the whole thing is just further proof that this has put him in such a difficult position. It's his own doing. There's no one else to blame. He obviously encouraged this to go on. Okay, 26 years ago, but unfortunately his links to Epstein from his point of view has led to a very unseemly downfall. And when you think last week the rest of the family were all gathering at Buckingham Palace and he was cutting a very lonely figure in the rain, riding forlornly around Windsor Great Park.
Most definitely. And King Charles has no further levers at his disposal to deal with his younger brother, does he?
Not really. He's obviously sending him into exile. There's not much else he can do. It's just that Andrew has created all these problems. And at times you feel for other members of the family, because what more sort of unseemly pictures or revelations might still come out of what he was getting up to? Because this Epstein file seems to have been heavily redacted, and we're not quite sure what they were covering up, but Andrew does always seem to be the one who's possibly unredacted, and it's almost like he's the easy sort of person to continue to beat with
yes,
with allegations.
Bless you. I'll let you get your voice back there. But it's an interesting issue, isn't it, Rupert? Lots of other celebrities implicated, of course. Bill Clinton, Michael Jackson, Woody Allen, even Diana Ross, Mick Jagger, Richard Branson. I mean, the good and the great of the world of business and showbiz were friendly, at the very least, with Epstein. Is there a degree to which Andrew has become the whipping boy for this story? And yes, he's demonstrated very poor judgment, but is perhaps no different to others, but the spotlight is on him.
I think there is an element of that. He is the sort of easy person to have a go at, and I think that is, because it's all out there. And he, by whatever he said, and it's not really a surprise. The other people, yes, when you said they're all friends. Now, Epstein,
Bill Clinton and Bill Gates, by the way. I mean, I'm concerned that Andrew is being used as a human shield in this story when those two very public American men have a case to answer themselves and yet look to be getting away with this scot-free.
Yes, and Jeffrey Epstein was an extremely clever man, the way he manipulated people to get what he wanted. He was, using his financial background and sort of helping all sorts of very rich American businessmen and women through when he was at this time, because it got him into the kind of circles that he wanted, and he was able to manipulate them. He was obviously an extremely clever person, the way he was able to do that. Now, we don't know what went on, but there are pictures of Bill Clinton in a bath, and you get, all sorts of things that just look a little bit seedy. And this is the problem. And, President Trump, I don't understand the full American sort of political system about what's going on, but it said that they were going to release everything. But then all you seem to do is get pages of black paper with nothing coming out. So it does feel at times that some people are being protected, whereas Andrew does seem to be the person, right? It's another Prince Andrew, or Andrew, a revelation. Oh, that's not a surprise, because he's already, his actions are well publicised.
Yes, and as a member of the royal family, he's unlikely to respond or have the right of reply. Last time he did that, it was the Newsnight interview, which was a total train wreck. Can I ask you, how do you think 2026 is going to pan out for the relationship between King Charles and his runaway son, Harry?
That, I think, is a very big problem. Harry does seem to have a lot of issues, and in terms of the PR perception, the reports coming out that he's recently changed his name. The Archwell Foundation wasn't making money. It lost maybe $3 million of some pretty punchy expenses, and maybe people are being let go from that. So he's got a lot of issues. And actually, when you think what's been going on, they're in a bit of a PR firestorm, and he's got his court case coming up in the early part of the year, which could again create tensions between him and the royal family. So it's not going to be straightforward for the king as he tries to maybe find a way just to repair relations with his prodigal son, and that is the problem for the king. I don't think William wants to go anywhere near him at the present. There's no trust there, and that is again another problem for Harry. But what does he want? And the only way that it could probably be repaired is if he offers some form of mea culpa. And I don't think that seems to be in his nature, because he permanently feels that he is the victim rather than the person who has caused problems for not only the king, but other members of the royal family.
Is there a chance of a Clarence House summit sequel? Is there a chance the two men will meet this coming year? Because I know that the next possible occasion would be Invictus in 2027, but do you think the two men will be in the same room this coming year?
Well, if he comes to Britain, and I'm sure Harry will come to Britain at various times. We always know that he comes back in September for the Well Child, do it on an annual basis, and maybe he's going to be coming to this court case. But I don't think around the court case it would probably be seemed appropriate for the king to be maybe meeting up, because it would lead to all sorts of speculation. And this is why it's a soap opera, and it's a tragedy for the king, who's been navigating through his recovery from cancer, and we heard about that a few days ago, about he's still having some form of treatment, not as regularly as before. So there's a lot going on, and I'm sure it pains the king that he has no relationship with his son, but I'm sure would like it, because that seems to be in his nature. But Harry does seem to put his foot in it on a regular basis. As soon as you think there's a bit of an olive branch, he then goes and bleats to the press and says stuff that breaks down the trust that might they attempt to rebuild. So it's a real mess and sad. And for Meghan and Harry, the last few weeks, it's supposed to be all trumpeting with the documentary and everything to sort of put them on an even keel. But obviously what's gone on around her father, they talk about great family values, but sometimes, they need to take a long, hard look at themselves and say, well, are we really promoting these family values? Because they have created the rifts on both sides.
Slightly confused by the messaging from the Sussexes this week, Rupert, because you've got the official Christmas card of the Sussexes, and it's very discreet. It's just Harry and Meghan as private individuals now at the Invictus Games in Canada earlier this year. That's the photograph that was on the greetings card. Merry Christmas, one and all. By the way, I noticed that the Sussexes didn't say the word Christmas, which is ironic given the fact that the King is very much a figurehead of the Church of England in this country. But anyhow, notwithstanding that the Sussexes have cancelled Christmas, it was just the two of them on the card. And so it looks like they're protecting the privacy of the kids. And yet, hours later on Thursday, Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex, publishes a very revealing photograph of the family, and including a lot more of Archie's face than we've seen hitherto. I'm confused. They either are protecting the privacy of their kids or not. Which is it?
This is the confusing status, and some people are even suggesting that eventually she might use them for, sort of commercial gain. But I really hope that's not the case. But at the same time, this mixed messaging is ridiculous, is just odd. Whereas you look at what the Waleses have done, quite open, taken in the spring, family picture, all three of them smiling, happy, the children with their parents, looks perfect. Why? It all this sort of cloak and dagger approach to back views of their children, it all sort of adds to a sort of sense of mystery. But for what purpose? In a sense, why do they feel the need to publish their Christmas card? No one else, they're not working royals, so why do they need to do it? That's the point. What are they trying to say? Here's our Christmas card, but we're not working royals. You can understand why the Waleses do it. It's a sort of formal thing. The King does it. But for Harry and Meghan, it just seems, again, part of their rather strange PR approach to life. And, they obviously want to be out there when you're seeing, the King, the future King and his son George going to Passage, the homeless charity, and they're sort of they've got lots of feel-good stuff coming out. The Sussexes are trying to respond, but actually overhanging them is a whole lot of rather nasty PR stories around their behaviour.
The Duke and Duchess of double standards. Yeah. Rupert, can I thank you for your amazing contributions to Talk over this year, and I've so much enjoyed our on-air encounters since my return to this network in late August. I look forward to many conversations with you in the new year. What happens in the Bell household for Christmas?
Well, I'm currently at the London International Horse Show. I'm in the horsey set. The horsey set have come to town, so that's what I'm doing. And then I will be stuffing a turkey on Sunday morning, whatever day Christmas Day is. I don't even know what day of the week it is at the moment, Mark. So I think I get home on Christmas Eve. I think I get home. So
that's Wednesday. Christmas Eve, Wednesday. Christmas Day, Thursday.
Yeah, well, anyway, happy Christmas one and all, and look forward to catching up in the new year. But I imagine I'll be on a bit of royal watch over the Christmas period as well.
I'm sure you will. We are colossal fans of your work, Rupert. Happy Christmas and a happy new year when it comes. Rupert Bell is Talk's royal correspondent. Folks, so much more to come. It looks like woke lunatics are going to ban Christmas songs because they are offensive. This is new legislation from our glorious Labour government, including Baby It's Cold Outside, which apparently is deeply, deeply sexist. Find out why next.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
The one and only Jeremy Kyle from the 5th of January. Let me give you my dates, which is basically what's going to happen is that I shall be presenting Talk Breakfast every Friday, Saturday and Sunday. That's Friday, Saturday and Sunday, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. But the way it starts is my first show is Saturday the 3rd. So I'm not around for the 2nd, but 3rd and 4th, that's the first weekend of January, and then from the 9th onwards as well. Can't wait to have your company. Delighted now to have the company of former BBC radio legend and now Talk legend and many other platforms as well, Alex Dyke. Good morning, Alex, and Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, Mark. Nice to see you.
It's not a very Merry Christmas for this government because they're about to have a law that will make singing the song Baby It's Cold Outside a criminal act. What's the problem with that song, Baby It's Cold Outside? That's on Dean Martin, isn't it? Baby It's Cold Outside.
Yeah, it's a Rat-Pack Christmas classic, Mark, and this is to do with the Me Too movement, who decided after about 50 years that this song is inappropriate. I mean, I see it as a song about a romantic couple, a guy. He's noticed it's snowing outside, so what he wants to do is see if he can stay over.
Well, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. What we're going to do, right, we're going to fix your microphone while I read out the Baby It's Cold Outside lyrics, and our excellent producer Isabel is going to swap your mic. And so let me get these. Here it comes now. Okay. I really can't stay. That's what the woman says. And then the guy goes, but baby, it's cold outside. She says, I've got to go away. He says, but baby, it's cold outside. The evening has been, and then been hoping that you'll drop in. My mother will start to worry. Beautiful, what's your hurry? My father will be pacing the floor. Listen to the fireplace roar. So really, I'd better scurry. Beautiful, please don't hurry. So basically, they're on it's just kind of Christmas Eve. And it's a young woman and a young man. And she's kind of going, I better run. And he's like, please don't. I mean, that's just is that not a normal romantic interaction?
Well, I would have thought so. Maybe they're at the third date or something, and he's hoping that she might stay over because she's snowed in. I mean, I always just saw it as a romantic gesture. I mean, you could look at all of these songs and pick them apart. I mean, the Drifters, Kissing in the Back Row, was sung by the Drifters as a throwback to what they did in the 50s, in the mid-70s. Well, by then, the lead singer of the Drifters, Johnny Moore, was far too young to be singing about picking a girl up from school. She does her homework, and then on a Saturday they can go to the movies. How deep do you want to go with this
Happy
stuff?
birthday, sweet 16. Neil Sedaka's basically, look, I've been waiting years for you to turn 16 so we can get down to it. That's basically the lyric.
And Ringo Starr will not perform. He's not performed You're 16, You're Beautiful and You're Mine for years and years and years. It was a hit for him in '72, an old rock and roll song for Johnny Burnett, and he's just refused to do it because he doesn't want the hassle from people.
Yeah. What about You Win Again, that song by the Bee Gees? Do you know that song?
Oh, yeah, it was a big #1 song, but I didn't realise there was a problem with the lyrics.
Well, I loved that song, You Win Again. The lyrics, right? I'm going to break down your defences one by one. I'm going to hit you from all sides. Lay your fortress open wide. Nobody stops this body from taking you. Now, if you want to... by the way, that was my chat-up line with Mrs. Dolan. It was very effective. She'd had a drink. She was wearing the beer goggles, thank God for that. Should have gone to Specsavers. But the bottom line is, that's basically a song saying, I ain't taking no for an answer. But that is art, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not the Bee Gees saying, right, what you're going to do is, attack women or something. This is a figurative... it's a little bit like, those movies, the old black and white movies, when the woman and the man, they're having a big fight, and then he grabs her, and then he just plonks a kiss on her. And at first she resists, and then suddenly she melts in his... I'm not... that's not the basis of social interaction, run out and do that yourself. It's a movie.
I know, and we all know that times have changed. We've just got to realise these songs were recorded in some cases slightly different times, and in other cases... really, there were quite big differences in the way we live, but we just can't continually airbrush history. I mean,
if men didn't persuade girls to stay at parties, we wouldn't have a human race, would we?
Well, no, we wouldn't.
There wouldn't be a little Alex Dyke. You would have been a twinkle in your father's eye.
Well, there you go. Yeah, well, there's a very good reason for keeping these songs out there. But another one on the list, Mark, is that pub landlords have got to alert people they shouldn't sing Jingle Bells.
Now, why would that be? Is that because of diversity? Rudolph, or what is it?
Well, it's because I don't know.
Rudolph doesn't tick a lot of boxes, does he? He's a redneck with a red nose.
The thing is,
a gammon old Rudolph, isn't he?
Oh, and we only all know the first couple of lines of Jingle Bells, don't we?
What's the problem with Jingle Bells?
I don't know. I've not looked up the
Dashing
lyrics.
through the snow on a one-horsed open sleigh. I guess there's only one horse. If it's socialism, there needs to be like 10 horses to do the one horse's job, right?
It could be.
Is that it?
It could be, Mark.
Dashing through the snow. Well, snow is white. The snow's white privilege, isn't it?
Well, yeah, we could pick anything
white
apart,
is bad.
couldn't we? We could pick anything apart.
Yeah, and Father Christmas he's ripe for cancellation, isn't he?
Absolutely.
What a bigot.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's just boring. And the thing is, you have had a lot of experience in music radio. These songs are beloved, aren't they?
But you know what? You've just reminded me. I'm going a bit off-piste here, but I tuned into the BBC last week, and they were...
That was your first mistake.
They were making a huge thing on this radio show about Black Christmas, right?
I beg your pardon?
Black Christmas is a thing, and they were talking about gospel choirs, which I love. And I thought, hang on a minute. I remember going into Woolies when I was about 10 years old, and do you remember the spinning record racks that we used to have, where the albums would be in, and you were like postcard stands, like postcard stands.
Yeah.
There was a Motown Christmas album, and it was a black Santa sat on some steps of a brownstone in New York, I'd imagine, in the ghetto, with these young black children around him. And as a 10 or 11-year-old, I thought, how cool is that? A black Santa. I didn't need it forced down my throat by the BBC.
Correct.
As kids, we were already there.
Well, let me give you another example. Just watched it the other day with my two lads, which is Lethal Weapon. Are you familiar with that film franchise? Mm. And you've got Mel Gibson and Danny Glover, right? And this was in the 80s. And Danny Glover, by the way, what a great actor. You got a white cop and a black cop, and they're very different personalities. And, bottom line, great entertainment. But Danny Glover wasn't there to tick a box.
No.
It wasn't tokenism. He was a great actor, fitted beautifully with... And if you actually... I watch a lot of movies of 70s and 80s, and all those movies, Alex Dyke, are diverse. They have a multi-ethnic cast, but it wasn't a project, it wasn't an ideology, and it wasn't box ticking.
I'll tell you what I'm going to do for you next time I come on, because I feel very strongly about this. We grew up with plenty of women on TV, like Elizabeth Montgomery in Bewitched, and Wonder Woman, and I Love Lucy. There were plenty of black actors and actresses out there. Not as many maybe as there should have been, but it's not the way it's painted now when we look back at the 60s and 70s. There were plenty of women in lead roles. And I'm going to do you a list of how right we had it. We weren't perfect, but we had it right without having it as box ticking exercises. I will do that for you next time.
Yeah, that is a project for you. I'd be so grateful. You know these Christmas songs, Step Into Christmas, Elton John, the Paul McCartney, Wonderful Christmas Time, Slade, what is it? What's the Slade
Merry
one?
Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas. Do these songs still make money for the authors of the songs?
Yeah, they do, but not in physical sales like they used to. The Slade song from '73's made 20 million plus.
Sorry, one song has made 20 million.
And most of that money goes to Noddy Holder and Jim Lee from the band who wrote it.
Wow.
So Dave Hill, the guitarist, and Don Powell, the drummer, don't get a lot in royalties, but they do. Roy Wood and Wizard, I Wish It Could Be Christmas Every Day, is bringing in Roy Wood something like probably £180,000 to £200,000 a year.
Unbelievable.
And all these Christmas songs, by the way, because I thought I'd do a little list for you from memory of what happened. So we all think Slade was the first big one, right? So in '73, Slade and Wizard released their songs on the same day in 1973, and Elton John too, Step Into Christmas. The year after that, you had Mudge, Waddy Waddy, Gilbert O'Sullivan, because they're now getting on the bandwagon, and that was in '74. In '75, you had Greg Lake, Judge Dredd, Dana, and now we're really rolling with these songs. Well, they had been around in the 50s, 50s and early 60s, but it was John Lennon who really started it. In Christmas 71, he recorded Happy Christmas, War is Over, because of the Vietnam War. And of course, he was all about peace and love. And he was working with Phil Spector as his producer. And it was Phil Spector who made the Christmas album that we all hear in shops and on radio stations now with the Ronettes and the Crystals, which actually, when it came out in 1963, flopped. The album was a massive flop because Kennedy had just been, JFK had just been murdered in Dallas, so in the November, so nobody wanted to celebrate Christmas 1963. So that album actually was a flop when it first came out.
So really interesting. So really the kind of contemporary Christmas single only dates back to sort of the early to mid 70s.
Yeah, as we know it now, there were them in, like the Phil Spector, and there were some in the 50s and 60s. Then it became a bit kitsch, but it was John Lennon who brought it back in the early 70s.
Right, and then anyone worth their weight had a Christmas song, didn't they? And do we get them now? I mean, Kylie's number one. Is that a Christmas tune? I think it is.
Yeah, they're still around because people, you know, songwriters and artists think if you want a big hit, you know, it's like you go to a decent bar, they're taking twice as much money at Christmas in a pub as they would on any other weekend in the year. So it's the same with the charts. Get a Christmas number one and you're set up.
In the absence of their two main presenters, is it the beginning of the end for Strictly Come Dancing? And let me tell you about this story, right? Pigs in blankets, one of the best things about Christmas, pigs in blankets, a sausage with bacon wrapped around it, are being stolen by shoplifters. They've got security tags. We've got the inside story. That's next.
The Talk app. You can watch, catch up and listen to all your favourite shows and podcasts anytime, anywhere, all on the Talk app. Watching and listening to Talk just got easier. There's now only one place for the home of common sense. So head over to your App Store or Google Play and search Talk now.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
A lovely message from Bruce in Sheffield. Good morning, Mark. Thank you for your work on Talk TV. He says that you're one of over 600 celebrities on the Santa Radio website with the Santa Radio mug that I go around with all year. Well, Santa Radio is fantastic. It's one rival that I'm happy to promote. And Bruce Davis is the man very involved with it. I think he founded it. So, Bruce, thank you for your kind words, and may God bless you for that. Have a great Christmas. Michelle, good morning. Great news about you doing 3 days a week on Talk. I prefer you 7 days, Michelle. That would actually destroy the country. She just wanted to wish all of us here a Merry Christmas. Well, let me thank you for that, Michelle in Altrincham, and thank you all of you. So I'm back. Quickly give you the dates now, because let's do the housekeeping. I'm back on Saturday, the 3rd of January. Saturday, the 3rd of January. And then the following week, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, every Friday, Saturday, Sunday, forever. I've actually checked with the boss and he said forever. Yep, okay, here's hoping. Folks, I look forward to that. Here's to a big new year. Have a great Christmas. With me in the studio, the one and only Alex Dyke. And Alex, one of my favourite things about Christmas is the pigs in blankets. For those that don't know, what is a pig in blanket?
It's a tiny little sausage, isn't it? Wrapped in bacon.
Very nice. And I don't know why it works as a combo, but it does, doesn't it?
It does. In fact, I had, on Friday, I had my first pigs in blankets for this year, because I thought it would get me feeling Christmassy. However, now you do a great line, Mark, about expensive coffee with a tag on it. I've heard you do it a few times, because you're passionate about that,
I'm quite triggered by that. I think if there's a security guard on Nescafe Cold Blend, then your society's falling apart, really.
Right, well, it's got worse, because security tags are being put on festive supermarket food. Small items such as pigs in blankets in a bid to fool shoplifters, says The Sun today on page 27. And there's a whole list of here of stuff that you would think, oh, is that really... If I was going to be going in to do some shoplifting, is this worth it? But, you know, this is very serious now. There were more than £20 million worth of thefts in shops last year, and that's 4 million more than the year before. So this is a real problem for shopkeepers.
It's so bad, and it's destroying profits. And even if it's a big supermarket, they will pass the cost on to consumers.
Of course.
And also it's that low-level crime which people say, oh, well, it's, you know, it's only minor, but it's a slippery slope, isn't it?
Absolutely. So that's bad news.
Listen, I want to get to your brilliant idea for the BBC. We had the last Strictly of the year. It was the final last night. Okay. Former Lioness Karen roars to Strictly victory is the headline in the Mail on Sunday. But they're losing their star presenters, Tess Daly and Carol Vorderman? No, what's she called? Winkleman. Claudia Winkleman. Is it the beginning of the end for that show now?
Well, I mean, it's beautifully produced. They spend a lot of money on it. It's very popular, but it's lazy TV, isn't it? It's been the same programme for over 20 years. I've heard they might bring Bradley Walsh in. I've heard it could be you and Kevin O'Sullivan. I heard that on a radio station
I've
very
spoken
early
to the
this
boss,
morning.
and we have permission, and we're going to charge £100, which will save the licence fee payers a lot of cash, and the show won't be woke. Kevin O'Sullivan and I are willing to present Strictly. There'll be people of diverse political views dancing. You won't get cancelled for daring, you know, to be right-wing or conservative or common sense. And the other thing that we'll do is we'll have celebrities that you've heard of.
Well, that's a very good idea. But I mean, for me, let bow out while it's still popular. Leave some of the audience wanting more.
Because it's a problem for these shows when they lose the main presenter, isn't it? They never seem to recover. I mean, I even think of Have I Got News for You after Angus Deaton, right?
I was just going to say that to you. There were some great episodes.
He was a genius.
Bruce Forsyth and people like that. But really, Angus Deaton, I never watched it seriously after he left.
No. Now listen, you've got a fix for the BBC, which could actually make my viewers and listeners love the BBC. Tell me more.
Right, so I think the BBC needs an over 50s ambassador.
Wow.
I've got some stats here for you. 40% of Britain is over 50. But because the under 20s or the under 18s never pay a licence fee, 50% of licence fee payers are over 50. That's £192 billion a year. and they're not getting served by the BBC. So I can only give you the headlines now because we're short on time. The BBC are always chasing younger audiences that they rarely win. So I'd like to come back and do more on this if we've got time.
Do it, yeah.
Let's get an over 50s ambassador for the BBC, because people like you and I are heard talking in supermarkets saying the BBC's not for people like us anymore. And it should be, because we've paid more money in for licence fees than anyone else. So in the new year, maybe when we've got more time, I could come back and tell you more about that.
We could also have a common sense ambassador at the BBC. Somebody that represents the public view that maybe you have borders for a reason, maybe there are two sexes. Would that be a valuable thing too? Because the way the BBC survives is to represent the viewpoint of all Brits, not just some narrow Islington bubble, right?
Absolutely. So what we should be saying to the BBC is, we're your partners, not your passengers.
Yeah, definitely. And also we're the customers, are we not?
Absolutely.
What do you think is going to happen to the BBC this coming year? Do you think they're going to have a good year? I mean, I've got so many people that message me on the show saying I'm not paying that licence fee now.
I know. Well, I worry for the BBC, because I think all the people who are seen to be ex-BBC and seen to be BBC bashing, or people in the media, it's only because we loved it so much when we were younger and we want it to be right. Hence my idea for an over-50s BBC ambassador.
Oh, well, that would be good. And also, now, regarding the Christmas telly, is that still a big thing, that the channels competing with each other now, ITV versus BBC? Does it work like that?
I don't think so, because we're all watching Netflix, Amazon Prime, Talk, YouTube, whatever. Why are the